Infinite projection room begins with the projection of Ultron's world destruction. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 626, Godzilla. He is familiar with military weapons. Stark Industries is the largest weapons supplier in the former United States. The firepower of the US military's weapons is very strong, but it is really difficult to deal with MUTOs. MUTOs can destroy fighter jets on the spot with an electromagnetic pulse. The electronic equipment that works well can only become a pile of electronic garbage in front of MUTOs. If he were there, he could create an anti-MUTO armor. The living symbiote before also gave him some inspiration. Although he is not good at the biological field, that is compared with his best field. He is Tony Stark, the top genius in his world and even the entire multiverse. A mere MUTO, easy to catch. Tony was thinking, and others were also thinking about how to deal with MUTOs. How heavy do you think the MUTOs are? Starting from 10,000 tons. Constantine said casually, this thing is heavier than the monsters in the Ultraman world. Isn't it reasonable that it doesn't weigh tens of thousands of tons? The situation in different worlds is different. What should we do? Don't tell me you are going to ask Godzilla. Obviously, asking Godzilla how heavy the MUTOs is like asking an elephant how many hairs the lion that attacked it yesterday has. It's a miracle that he can answer it. Peter thought about it. Now he pointed out the mirror field and gigantism. For a mere MUTO, it is not a problem. If it is a large female MUTO, it will be even simpler. The male still has to worry about it flying away, and the female can't even run away. A shot of sacred fire will teach it that it should go to bed honestly. 2 may be a bit strenuous, but it's not a big problem. Hikari and Ace are even less worried. The level of the MUTOs is about the level of Antonla at best. Any member of the elite Ultra Guard can deal with it. Moreover, Ultra Father has recovered his prime and is now preparing to fight with Emperor. Bruce Wayne thought about it and ruled out the trump card of using Clark as the finale and pulling Kryptonians as coolies. If the current human technology is used to deal with the MUTOs, this giant beast should have some weaknesses. In the end, Godzilla should be the one to deal with the MUTOs. This is almost certain. When the time comes, look at Godzilla's fighting style and prepare a plan to deal with the MUTOs while preparing a plan to deal with the MUTOs. The video continues. The female MUTO also discovered these buzzing insects flying around her forehead, and she was also particularly annoyed. It's like when you are eating, there are a group of mosquitoes flying around your ears and trying to bite you. It's simply unforgivable. The female MUTO immediately released an electromagnetic pulse. The powerful electromagnetic pulse not only instantly shot down the F-22 fighter like a mosquito, but also the entire Hawaii was within the attack range of the electromagnetic pulse. All electronic equipment in Hawaii failed and was scrapped under the attack of electromagnetic pulse. The whole of Hawaii was almost plunged into complete darkness. Only the bonfire on the beach could provide a little light for this dark city. At this time, the strange phenomenon occurred again. A little girl on the beach looked at the sea in confusion. She didn't know what happened on the sea. Why was the seawater running back? The puzzled girl called her father. The man was called to the beach by his daughter. Looking at the crazy receding tide, the man's face turned pale in an instant. Generally speaking, there is only one possibility for this situation. Everyone run. The tsunami is coming. The alarm sounded on the coast, and a helicopter that was lucky enough to avoid the first round of electromagnetic pulses was reporting the situation to the main ship. Here are the desperados. The electromagnetic pulses sent by the target almost defeated us. Damn it. There is something moving rapidly to seas east of your position. It is very likely another monster. On the deck of the warship, Dr. Serizawa was wearing a coat. The sharp sea breeze was like a knife blowing on his face, but he did not intend to rest. He was waiting for a guy to appear. Suddenly, Dr. Serizawa's eyes widened, and he walked forward slowly. He picked up the telescope and looked into the distance. A dorsal fin like a blade was getting closer and closer in Serizawa's sight, carrying Hela and rushing towards them at a high speed. It was getting bigger and bigger. Dr. Cerezoa took down the telescope suddenly, and the dorsal fin was already in front of him. The dorsal fin like a sawtooth collided with the ship and split the ship into two before diving deep into the sea to avoid the tragedy of ship destruction and death. But then it overturned another warship. On the island of Hawaii, a tsunami arrived. A dog was running for his life in the crowd. The good news was that the height of the waves was still within the normal range, and there was no particularly outrageous height. The bad news was that it was a tsunami after all. Watching people being swept away by the sea, Peter felt very uncomfortable. He once again had a new understanding of giant creatures. They were like elephants, and humans were ants living next to elephants. Elephants would not care about ants. After all, they were not humans with cheap hands who would be bored enough to burn ants for fun. However, the random movement of elephants, or even a simple turnover, could crush a large group of ants to death. But fortunately, the scale of this tsunami was not very large, and there was number 100 meter tsunami caused by Ultraman Tigger. If it was really a tsunami of that level, there would be no need to run, and the whole of Hawaii would be doomed. Image continues in the darkness. Someone fired a flare, and a red light streaked across the black night, and a huge figure revealed part of its true appearance. That was Godzilla. The reaction of the crowd was not bad. They had seen all kinds of messy things, and were used to giant beasts. Although it was indeed very oppressive to watch a 100-meter giant beast from the perspective of ordinary people, and if they were unlucky, they might even suffer from giant phobia, but none of the people present were ordinary people. Even if they were new, they were bigger bosses like Ganita. Bruce looked at the team attacking Godzilla on the screen, and his face twitched. The world is different, the angle is different, and the situation is different. Maybe the monsters that people in the Ultraman world have to face are no less than Godzilla or even stronger. But first the Ultra God flattened an asteroid with an R1 missile, and then the Ultraman rushed to help clean up the mess. The pressure of the monsters was there, but there was no sense of powerlessness. Even when facing Gatangia, even if Ultraman Tigger was defeated, everyone believed that mankind would not perish because of Ultraman Tigger. But when facing Godzilla, the situation is different. Chapter 627, Thanos. Something seems wrong with my counterpart. With Ultraman, no matter what happens, humans have the last trump card. But there is no Ultraman in this world. There are only ancient monsters. These guys are completely different from Ultraman, and they can hardly communicate. They don't care about humans at all, let alone help humans fight monsters. In other words, humans can only rely on themselves. Relying on oneself is right, but when Bruce saw that the other party could easily overturn a 10,000-ton warship just by swimming, and when he saw that the 9mm bullets hitting Godzilla didn't even have the effect of scraping, but saw that the human attack couldn't even attract the other party's attention, Bruce only felt a deep sense of powerlessness. It's like he was facing Clark. Even with the water drop armor, he still felt powerless when facing Clark. The environment of Krypton can only make Clark weak, just like a cold. It's Clark who gets weaker, not Clark's body. His body is still invulnerable. Moreover, the environment of Krypton is just not suitable for Clark, just like altitude sickness. Since it's not suitable, it means that it can be adapted. Altitude sickness is not like a fish out of water. Clark can fully adapt to the environment of Krypton. By then, Clark's only weakness will be eliminated. Peter watched Godzilla stride away and breathed a sigh of relief for the soldiers. With Godzilla's size, it would be a blessing from God if he could leave a whole body with just one blow of his tail. Holy Lord, Godzilla, look, those humans are attacking you. Don't you plan to fight back and let them know your power? Godzilla, so they were attacking me at that time. Holy Lord? Godzilla, to light, I didn't feel it at all. And I was busy killing the mutos at that time, and I didn't pay any attention to those humans. Loki Odinson, ha 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 ha, it's so funny. You humans are so funny. It's like a life and death battle, but no one noticed you. The video continues. Just then, the effect of the electromagnetic pulse passed, and the city regained light again. Ford was comforting a little boy on a tram at this moment, but at this moment, the crowd once again became riotous. As the influence of the electromagnetic pulse passed, the malfunctioning electronic equipment started up one after another, and in the restored light, the figure of a giant beast began to be seen by people. Muto. The body several dozen meters high slowly moved in the city. Humans were real bugs under the feet of Muto. The fighter still launched an attack, even if this attack had no effect, except to anger the opponent. But at least it could anger the opponent, didn't it? The huge body of the Muto was a natural disaster in the human city, even if it was just walking. A fighter was shot down by the Muto. The fighter fell in the airport and erupted into a huge flame. Under the shadow of the flame, a giant foot like a pillar of heaven slowly fell down. Godzilla. The two monsters roared at each other. People fled in all directions. Honolulu was almost destroyed, and the highest alert status had been set. West Coast Hospital was ready. Okay Sam, turn off the TV and go to bed. Ellie walked into the living room and said to Sam, remember to brush your teeth. On TV, the two monsters were roaring and fighting with each other. Sam got up from the sofa and watched the news on TV intently. Thousands of people have died Sam. Do you hear what I said? Sam? The Mutos ran away, and Godzilla, who couldn't catch up because the other party could fly, disappeared directly into the vast ocean. That's actually a male Muto? The one with wings? If this is a male, and the other female is bigger than this one, the humans in that world will be in big trouble. Okay Sam, let's go. Mom, look, a big dinosaur. Ellie looked at the picture on the screen. Her eyes gradually widened. The entire Honolulu was turned into a doomsday ruin. The destruction caused by the battle between the two giant beasts was far beyond human expectations. When designing the city's builders would never take into account the fact that two 10,000-ton monsters would wrestle in the city. Even if they did, there was no good way to avoid it. Ford was holding a little boy and looking for his parents. Fortunately, the boy's parents were fine. Looking at the reunited family of three, Ford breathed a sigh of relief. They were reunited, and he could go and find his family with peace of mind. On the warship, Dr. Serizawa was frowning as he looked at the simulated scene on the screen. The Mutos are moving eastward. Combining all the data, the target will meet on the Pacific coast. At present, it seems that Godzilla is following it. Dr. Serizawa suddenly said, it is hunting. Continue to record the information. The Admiral asked, Doctor, are you talking about Godzilla or the Mutos? Godzilla. Dr. Serizawa said, it's like a pack of wolves catching prey on the grassland. It is following the Mutos. When the prey is weak, the predator will take action. But this signal is a call. Dr. Graham said to Dr. Serizawa with the information in his hand, the Mutos summoned Godzilla to hunt itself? No normal creature would cause itself such trouble. No, it's not. Dr. Serizawa shook his head and said, the signal is calling, but it is not calling Godzilla. Godzilla's arrival is just an accident, or Godzilla has another set of abilities to sense the Mutos. The signal sent by the Mutos must be calling something else. Dr. Serizawa's face gradually turned pale. He knew what the Mutos were doing, and where they were going. He knew that they had caused a huge trouble for humans. They had become the abnormal creatures that would cause trouble for themselves in their own words. What does Serizawa mean by this? Remember the two cocoons found in the mines in the Philippines? Constantine had an expression that saw through everything. One hatched into a Muto. What about the other one? As soon as Constantine said this, almost everyone understood. What's wrong? What happened? Looking at the puzzled janitor, Peter explained to janitor in a soft voice. Two cocoons were found in a mine in the Philippines before. One was a hatched Muto, and the other was a Muto that had not yet hatched. The Emperor Project sent Dr. Serizawa there to check the situation, and then he found the corpses of Mr. Godzilla's fellow Mutos and the Muto cocoons that had not yet hatched. And the Emperor Project must have taken away the cocoons and corpses. Now the Mutos are constantly sending out signals. They must be calling for something. What do you think it is? Janitor. After a brief thought, Janitor understood instantly. The Mutos are calling their companions. Correct answer. Peter stretched out a hand and wanted to high-five Janitor, and then Janitor looked straight at Peter. Peter said awkwardly, Janitor, this action is called high five, a gesture on our earth, which means good job, happy cooperation, etc. I understand. After all, Janitor is a cosmic god. Even if he has no certificate, he is still a cosmic god. His comprehension and learning abilities are top notch in the entire universe. He figured out these things in an instant. Janitor and Peter clapped their hands lightly and then said, "The cocoon of the other Muto has been transported to other places." The Muto is now rushing to the location of his companions, and Godzilla is following closely behind the Muto. In other words, the people of the Monarch Project have led the two giant beasts to their base, and soon it will become a battlefield for the three giant beasts to fight. Right? Godzilla, that's right. Logan, have I seen too much and become numb? I'm no longer surprised by this kind of suicidal behavior of humans. Holy Lord, the word suicidal is a bit interesting. Humans are really a kind of creature that is good at suicidal. I don't know what the righteousness of the year was thinking, and he actually chose humans as his agent. Now, our world is almost being killed by them. Loki Odinson, that's why I always insist that ignorant creatures like humans need more advanced beings, such as me to guide them. Thanos, in the process of evolution, it is inevitable for life to make mistakes. If they perish because of the mistakes they made, it is also their own choice. Ace, Thanos is right. We have no reason to interfere with the choices of other races. Loki Odinson, it seems that you are the most powerful here. Thanos, yes, I did interfere with the progress of life, and I don't think I did anything wrong. Janitor, I remember, you are the cosmic tyrant, the crazy titan who killed several galaxies. When Janitor saw Thanos' name and what he said before, he suddenly remembered that in their universe there was a crazy titan who was carrying out a massacre throughout the universe. Originally, when Janitor saw Thanos during the break, she didn't think much about it. She just thought he was a titan or a special life form from another universe. In addition, Thanos had a calm temperament like an old farmer who plowed the land, and he even poured water for her. Janitor never connected him with the cosmic killer Thanos. At that time, she never asked Thanos' name, but now, Janitor recognized him. Thanos, my counterpart. I did carry out massacres to maintain the balance of the universe. If I were doing the same thing in that world, I would not defend him, because it is not wrong, and it is also part of salvation. Janitor, not wrong? Exclamation mark. You killed all the lives in several starfields, any creatures that have evolved wisdom, and even the primary life that has not evolved wisdom. You call this salvation? I want to talk to that girl. After thinking for a long time, I don't know where to start, so I decided to write a letter. Chapter 628, Loki's Theory. On a beautiful planet, Thanos was boiling a pot of hot soup. Seeing Janitor's speech, Thanos was stunned, and then quickly put away the salt bag in his hand. His face was bitter. Too much salt was poured. But compared to the fact that a pot of good soup was ruined, he cared more about Janitor's words. What do you mean another self killed countless creatures in galaxies? Exclamation mark. Thanos didn't think that the daughter of the planet devourer would hearsay or deceive him. The self in that universe might have really become a complete killer. Thanos didn't oppose killing, but he opposed meaningless massacres. He killed people to save the universe and to achieve his own wishes. What about the self in that world? Why did the self in that world kill people? If there is also a great wish, Thanos will not object, but will support it. But if it is really just for some stupid reason, or simply for no reason, just wanting to kill, then he will be the first to go over and chop off the other's dog head. It is a great shame to be a co-op with such a guy. Thanos, do you know why my counterpart wants to carry out a massacre? Janitor, I don't know. He runs very fast, so fast that even Silver can't catch up. He is also very good at hiding. We found him. The most important thing is that his strength is also terrifying. There was once a member of the Celestials who met your counterpart, and then they broke out into a battle. According to my father, your counterpart slaughtered the member of the Celestials before the other Celestials came to support. Strange. Janitor, are you sure it's slaughtering instead of killing? Janitor, yes, that's what my father said. Is there a difference between these two words? Strange, that's a big difference. Killing may be defeated after a hard fight, while slaughtering, that's like Godzilla facing ordinary humans. The word slaughter can only be used on the premise of crushing the opponent. Thanos, what's the situation of my current me? Janitor, I don't know. Your counterpart moves to a new place every time he shoots, and the time of the crime is not fixed. The most important thing is that we can't find him. Loki Odinson, TSK, this bad feeling. Does anyone remember what I told you during the break of the 5th Live broadcast? Strange, you mean, the frost giants and fire giants attacked Asgard, and you suspected that someone was behind it? Loki Odinson, that's right. At that time I always suspected that there was a mastermind behind all this, but later I did a lot of investigations, but found no traces. The answer given by many frost giant tribal chiefs was that they went to Asgard to take back the frost box under the call of Malekith, but I don't think things are that simple. Loki Odinson, if all this is really just a coincidence, then it couldn't be better. The video continues. Dr. Graham instantly understood what Dr. Serizawa meant. She told everyone that of the two spores found at the beginning, one was a hatched muto, while the other was intact. But we dissected it, and we used it for experiments for several years. You confirmed it yourself. Dr. Serizawa shook his head and said, maybe not now. Doctor, where is the spore? Where is your nuclear waste storage? That is, Nevada. At the site where nuclear waste is stored, fully armed soldiers are searching, but they are still a step too late. The muto has hatched. The good news is that this muto cannot fly. The bad news is that this muto is more than twice the size of the previous flying muto. The warship quickly got the news of the muto. I don't know how this muto escaped, but it actually ran to Paris and demolished the Eiffel Tower. The data of the new muto has come out. This big guy is 300 feet long. 300 feet is about 91.4 meters. Although this muto is bigger, it has no wings. This is only a female. Dr. Serizawa said, the previous one that could fly was a male. The signal sent by the male muto is to call the female muto. It must be courtship. The female fell into a deep sleep and remained dormant all to wait for the male to mature. Now they have to find radioactive energy to ensure reproduction. That is, to build a nest. Through analysis, the military finally determined 3 targets. The male and female mutos and Godzilla will eventually meet in the Bay of San Francisco. The military's plan is to install a protective timer on the nuclear warhead and then install it on the ship so that the ship will sail 20 miles away from the coast and use this method to lure the muto away. Godzilla's hunting target is the muto. As long as the muto is gone, Godzilla has no reason to stay in San Francisco. This is unscientific. How can the US military care about civilians? Don't they usually just drop nuclear bombs on San Francisco and then drop them when they find that the nuclear bombs are useless? Could it be that, just like different worlds have different us, this world is an extremely rare army with normal intelligence? Loki watched their discussion and suddenly had a crazy idea. Loki Odinson, you guys, is there a possibility? It may not be right, it's just my guess. Wanda, can you tell me directly? Loki Odinson, the reason why the US military in the Godzilla world seems so normal is because they need to be a supporting role to promote the plot, so it's so normal. Peter Parker, Logan, Tony Stark, Wanda, Loki Odinson, stop spamming. Think about it seriously. If we compare the screenings we saw before to a story or a movie in a more Earth-friendly way, are the protagonists, villains and supporting roles all gathered? Loki Odinson, going back a little bit, remember what those shits in the Time Management Bureau said? They said that I was destined to be a villain, a clown, a tool to promote the growth of the protagonist, Thor. Loki Odinson, I was angry about this for a while, but when I calmed down, I found that it was not that simple. Loki Odinson, the reason why I did those things has a lot to do with my childhood experience. It was normal, but when I connected all this with the stories in the screening room, everything seemed abnormal. Loki Odinson, the screening room shows us stories again, real stories one by one. Do you think it is interesting to add a story, a movie, with only fighting plots, but no interaction between characters? Loki Odinson, we can watch this story from Godzilla's perspective, and then you will find it extremely boring. Godzilla is either diving or fighting, and we cannot fully understand its thinking logic, but if we add the human perspective, we can watch it very interestingly. Bruce Wayne, you mean, our world is actually in the story. Bruce Wayne, just like the river god. I was instantly shocked when I saw the comment even bugs have partners or NM. Stranger. Chapter 629. Third update. Loki Odinson. That's right. In the story of the river god, how did Ra know everything that happened before, after he was resurrected? The script. He read the script. Loki's words were like a bolt from the blue. Yes, all of them forgot about the script. Maybe some people noticed it, but the chaos in that world at that time was so great that a script was nothing. But if you think about it, you will find that some things seem to be accidental, but they seem to have been arranged by someone. Loki Odinson, do you remember what the screening room said at the beginning of Deadpool's show? Strange. Deadpool start linking. Not Deadpool start playing. Loki Odinson, that's right. That madman obviously has the ability to break the dimensional wall. I suspect that the reason why the screening room called it starting linking instead of starting playing is because it couldn't hide it from Deadpool and couldn't hide it from that madman to record that madman's story for us to watch. We can only watch the live broadcast. Loki Odinson, I suspect that Deadpool has the ability to peek into the truth of the projection room. And the projection room was in a hurry to disconnect the link because Deadpool was about to see it clearly. Peter Parker, I think you are overthinking. If it is really as you said, why would the projection room connect to Deadpool? Loki Odinson, it is also possible that the projection room is out of control. He is afraid that we will discover his secret. Ace, I don't think the projection room is narrow-minded. According to the projection room's power to ignore the King of Ultra, the projection room is fully capable of resetting our memories. Moreover, have you realized one thing? Loki Odinson, what? Agwang, you are communicating with us using the ability provided by the projection room. Hikaru's words also silenced Loki. The video continues. After listening to the military's idea, Dr. Graham was completely confused. You better tell me you are kidding me. Come on, they eat this stuff. You are going to kill them with a nuclear bomb. Why don't you use watermelon and fried chicken to kill a Nige? Captain Nige said, it's because they eat these things that we have to use nuclear bombs as bait. Then another man in a suit and tie continued, the explosion will solve them. This is crazy. This is the stupidest plan I have ever heard of. 10,000 times stupider than the plan we used to defraud funds in our institute. I knew it. Okay, Loki's conclusion is self-defeating from a certain angle. Loki Odinson, are you sure? Doesn't this further confirm my conclusion? Godzilla is the protagonist, mutants are the villains, and humans are the supporting roles. When they need to have intelligence, they behave normally, and when they don't need it, they start to reduce their intelligence, as if to promote the development of the plot. The video continues. Faced with Dr. Graham's protest, the Admiral directly asked the other party if they had a better plan. If they did, they would listen attentively. If not, they should not delay their group of professionals from saving the world. Dr. Graham was no match for these old guys. The other party's meaning was very clear. That is, they knew that they could not come up with a better plan, because nuclear bombs were already the most powerful weapons of mankind so far. They couldn't just conjure up a steel monster out of thin air and let the steel monster deal with the Titan monster, right? However, Dr. Serizawa gave an answer. Godzilla. Dr. Serizawa firmly believed that Godzilla came here to restore the balance of nature, and Godzilla could defeat the mutos. Obviously, this statement could not convince the military at all. Even Dr. Graham did not agree with this statement. Expecting a monster to defeat another monster, and humans waiting for the monster to become their savior. Not only did the military not agree with this idea, but even ordinary people could not agree with it. Looking at the Admiral who continued to issue orders, Dr. Serizawa suddenly understood how Brody had been through all these years. Looking at the conversation between the Admiral and Dr. Serizawa on the screen, everyone felt that there was something behind these words. And Loki even felt that these words might not be said by Dr. Serizawa to the Admiral, but to them. The plan began, and the unlucky Ford wanted to take a ride home, but was taken to Nevada again. Ford was very upset, but this was reality. Seeing that he couldn't hide, Ford simply boarded the train as a bomb disposal expert. This is a train that transports nuclear warheads. If nothing goes wrong, there should be an accident. The range affected by the electromagnetic pulse is getting larger and larger, and even a passenger plane fell from the sky, causing countless casualties. Dr. Serizola is still trying hard to persuade the general's nuclear bomb plan. He knows that for the mutos, nuclear bombs can only add to their meals. We can adjust the yield, not the one from 1954. You're still planning to increase it? The castle of Bravo had a yield of 15 million tons, and it didn't kill Godzilla. How much yield do you think it would take to kill the mutos? Are you making a big Ivan? 15 million yield, that's too scary. If it doesn't kill Godzilla, then I'm afraid it won't work, even if Big Ivan is alive. Because they went in the wrong direction. Godzilla and the mutos are not afraid of this thing at all. Even if the yield is bigger, the effect won't be much better. On the way, the soldiers were setting the detonation time of the nuclear bomb. Because the mutos will interfere with all electronic equipment, they can only use the most primitive machine timer to detonate. But just as the soldiers were preparing, a burst of flames suddenly broke out on the distant mountain. Another plane crashed. And this means that the mutos are coming. Looking at the other side, where the war had already started, the train stopped in an emergency and waited for instructions. But under the electromagnetic pulse of the muto, they couldn't hear anything. The soldiers carefully explored along the railroad tracks, but not long after they walked past, they saw the wreckage of the tank floating along the river. They knew they had to leave. Fortunately, the main body of the bridge was fine, but when they wanted to leave, they were knocked to the ground by a tremor. A giant beast emitting orange-yellow light slowly walked over. Everyone quickly lay down on the railroad tracks, not daring to move, for fear that the sound would attract the beast. There was originally a dialogue between Serizola and the Admiral, but I didn't write it. I thought about it for a long time, and wrote a lot in the writer's words, but I deleted it all in the end. Chapter 630, Godzilla's Help. In the silent night, only the cry of the mutos was still echoing. Only this giant beast at the top of the food chain is qualified to expose its position in the dark. Suddenly, a violent and piercing sound was heard. It was a train. The mutos went to attack the train carrying the nuclear warheads. The mutos picked up the nuclear warheads like a bird picking up insects. At this time, the train just ran to the bridge, and the bridge broke. The mutos went into the water with the nuclear bomb in their mouths and disappeared. On the other side, Godzilla was still on his way to diving. Oh my god. Seeing that the nuclear bomb became the first dinner of the female muto, everyone was in a headache. You said that, if the nuclear bomb was used as bait, to lure out the mutos and Godzilla, it would be fine. They actually insisted on using nuclear bombs to kill a group of monsters that feed on radioactivity. This is fucking stupid. In fact, if we combine Serizola's idea with the military's idea, it will become a pretty good plan. Bruce Wayne said, mutos need food. They can use nuclear bombs as bait, and then take the three monsters to the sea and let them fight to the death. But Serizola's plan won't work. Even if the three monsters fight in the city, God knows how many people will die. Even if they are all evacuated, the economic losses will be huge. The military's plan is more like giving the monsters extra food. Why can't they combine the two plans? Wanda, Ford is also on that train, right? Will he be okay? Although Wanda has extremely complicated feelings when facing this homonymous version of her brother, she doesn't want Ford to get into trouble because she doesn't know whether to call it brother and sister or what kind of relationship. She has seen Quicksilver's body once, and she doesn't want to see the body of her brother's homonymous version again. Loki Odinson, you can rest assured. Others may die, but it is unlikely that Ford will die. At least not before Godzilla comes here. Wanda, although I'm very grateful that you can say a few human words, but why? Loki Odinson, TSK, I will argue with you later about your insult to me. I think that with the length of Ford's appearance in this story, he is at least an important supporting role. He may die, but he will definitely not die in such a painful place. At least he will play a huge role in promoting the whole story before he dies. Wanda, just like you were strangled to death by Thanos for saving Thor. Loki Odinson, yes. My death at that time played a very important role in the story of the Avengers. I don't know how Thor got Stormbreaker, but my death definitely played a big part in his getting Stormbreaker. And if I didn't die, but ran away with the Cosmic Cube, could Thanos find me? Even if he found me, the story would not be perfect. Tony Stark, I think you are too smart for your own good, and you are confused by your own theory. The video continues. The rescue team found Ford on a riverbank, although they were originally here to rescue the nuclear warhead. In the city, the hospital was already overcrowded, and the subway station was almost full as a shelter. The seriously ill and children were evacuated because it was safer to take them away. Ford, who was taken on the plane again, looked at the remaining nuclear warhead and asked the Master Chief beside him where they were going to transport it. The Master Chief's answer was to the sea. They still had to blow up the three-headed monster. Loki Odinson, aha. I was right. Ford was the only one who survived in the team. What does this show? Exclamation mark. This shows that Ford is the most important supporting character here. Loki Odinson, just wait and see. Ford's story is definitely not over. I guess he won't be able to reunite with his family later. Something will definitely happen, such as the Muto attacking the hospital and Ford going to save people. Wanda, I just praised you. Godzilla, I remember, it was in this place that I saved a group of humans. Bruce Wayne, save people. Godzilla, I passed by here, and humans attacked me. Although it was useless, some exploding rocks almost fell on the fleeing humans, and I helped them block it. Bruce Wayne, thank you for your help, but I still want to ask, what is human in your eyes? Godzilla, weakened using exploding rocks to wake me up. Loki Odinson, ha 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 ha. I laughed to death. Well said. Well said. Captain America, then why do you protect those humans? Godzilla, although the bugs are annoying, they once served my tribe. I'll help them if I can. Those exploding rocks are not a threat except for being a little noisy. Bruce Wayne, serve? Indeed, if Godzilla and his companions still show signs of being active in a million years, and the human development in that world is different from our world, it is indeed possible that in the Paleolithic age a million years ago, primitive people recognized Godzilla and his companions as gods. Strange, indeed, a group of giant beasts that are hundreds of meters long can be touted as the incarnation of gods, as long as they are properly operated even in modern society, and there are definitely many people who believe in this statement, let alone a million years ago. Diana Prince, I see, you called yourself a titan before, which should be the translation in the theater, but your body shape is not much different from the legendary titan giant. Captain America, how did the primitive people serve you a million years ago? Captain America briefly imagined, and could probably guess what the so-called serving a giant beast would be like in that barbaric era of eating raw meat and drinking blood. It is almost certain to be a blood sacrifice. Although it is somewhat wrong to view a group of primitive people who performed blood sacrifices 1 million years ago with modern moral standards, Captain America still doesn't want to see Godzilla eat people. Godzilla, although they are weak and cannot directly participate in the battle between our tribe and other titans, they built a shelter for our tribe. Wanda, shelter? Bruce Wayne, it should be a temple or something like that. Believers build temples for the gods they believe in. Of course, caves are more likely. Captain America, anyway, as long as it is not a blood sacrifice. Bruce Wayne, blood sacrifice is meaningless. With Godzilla's size, the energy required to maintain normal physiological activities is not something that can be solved by eating 1 or 2 mammoths, let alone humans. Right square bracket. Chapter 631,520 Happy, RNM, Strange Bug. Godzilla, blood sacrifice? If you mean killing a bunch of tiny creatures and putting them in front of my eyes, I did. Ganatha, do you eat humans? Ganata has seen many giant beasts in the universe. Generally speaking, these giant beasts treat creatures smaller than themselves as food. Ganata has seen it many times, but he didn't stop it because it is a normal ecological cycle in the universe. As a god of the universe, Ganata naturally understands this. But everyone in the theater is basically human. If Godzilla eats people, others will be very angry. Ganata himself never eats intelligent life, even if he faints from hunger. A member of the celestial god group told Ganata a long time ago that he had just said that he would help humans. Godzilla, why should I eat tiny creatures like humans? Ganatha, then why don't you stop them? Godzilla, why should I stop their confusing behavior? Janitor found that it was really impossible to continue chatting that day. The other party's brain circuit was not on the same channel as his. The video continued. On a bridge, countless fleeing cars were queuing to leave the city, but because there were too many vehicles and the road was slippery due to rain, the bridge was successfully blocked. And according to Murphy's Law, generally speaking, when a bad thing happens, something worse will definitely follow. The tank started directly across the bridge, aiming at the distant coast. A huge dorsal fin broke through the waves and finally stopped in front of the bridge. Then the dorsal fin moved, and Godzilla, who slowly stood up, squeezed the two warships directly. Seeing this, the already nervous army saw it as a sign that the other party was going to launch an attack. Fire. With an order, artillery fire flew. There were even missiles fired without aiming, flying directly over the bridge. The drivers on the bridge had never seen such a scene before, and they were directly scared crazy. As we all know, in general, chaos will only get more chaotic unless there is someone who can suppress the whole situation and maintain the overall situation. Obviously, the current bridge obviously does not have this condition. Seeing the missiles flying, everyone wants to escape. Everyone is taking care of their own lives. How can they take care of others? A school bus started to drive directly to the other end of the bridge. The driver in the car stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, wishing that he was not driving an F4 car now. It's troublesome. It's completely chaotic. How are these guys trained? Why are they firing randomly? I thought they were going to cause trouble, and sure enough, it doesn't matter. Mr. Godzilla will save those people. Godzilla, no, I dismantled the thing you call a bridge. Peter Parker, why? Exclamation mark. There are people on it. Godzilla, because I'm very annoyed by their beatings. Peter was very angry, but also very powerless, because this video was not a prediction of the future, but a fact that had already happened. At the same time, he also knew that he could not expect an ancient giant beast to have the same moral standards as himself. Even humans were not many who could do what he did, and it was nonsense to expect a giant beast to understand human moral standards. How similar is Godzilla's view of humans to how humans view insects such as ants and mosquitoes? Godzilla had already done his best to help as a cannonball before, but now that he was annoyed by being beaten, how similar is it to himself being unable to sleep because of the noise of mosquitoes and getting up to light mosquito coils and spray insecticides? From the perspective of insects, there is no difference between humans and Godzilla. Video continues. Just when a cannonball was about to hit the bridge, Godzilla emerged from the water and helped the humans on the bridge block this deadly missile. But the other soldiers saw the monsters were in front of them, so they didn't care about so much. The tanks opened fire directly, and the shells exploded on Godzilla's body. Although these attacks could not even break Godzilla's defense, they were barely enough to scratch him, but they still hurt. Godzilla, who was in pain, was in a hurry to chase and kill Muto, so he directly crashed into the Golden Gate Bridge and walked to the other side. And on a ship not far away, the army actually planned to detonate a nuclear bomb here. Absolutely. Constantine couldn't help but applaud the US military on the screen when he saw this scene. Although he didn't know what the US military was thinking, detonating a nuclear bomb in such a place was really a method that even the smartest people couldn't think of. Loki Odinson, ha 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 ha. You still say that Godzilla kills people. He just got hurt and wanted to leave. What about you? You just took the nuclear bomb and detonated it there. Don't you humans know who killed more people? Exclamation mark. Everyone couldn't refute what Loki said. Even if the nuclear bomb was detonated on the spot, it would inevitably have a very serious impact on the surrounding environment. They didn't know the equivalent of the nuclear bomb, but they knew the equivalent of Castle of Cheers, 15 million tons. Less than Castle of Cheers. It's useless and may affect San Francisco. More than Castle of Cheers. I don't know what the behemoth will do. Anyway, San Francisco will be finished. Anyway, it's a piece of trash, no matter how you look at it. At this moment, the electronic equipment on the ship also failed. It's an electromagnetic pulse. The whole San Francisco was instantly out of power. Ellie walked out of the makeshift medical tent and saw a fighter pilot parachuting down from the air. Then a fighter plane crashed into a building next to it with the momentum of 911. more planes fell like dumplings. If they were lucky, they would still have a whole body. If they fell into the sea, the fighter plane might still be used after being fished out. Those that fell on land were really finished. The Muto dived into the water and then emerged from the water, appearing directly on the shore. It picked up the nuclear warhead and flew away. Finally, the Muto chose to land in front of a skyscraper, and the female Muto also came over at this time. The male Muto handed the nuclear warhead in his mouth to the female Muto mouth to mouth, as if it was a gift. After taking the nuclear warhead, the female Muto placed the nuclear warhead on her glittering abdomen. The female Muto is about to lay eggs. Some people are concerned that even monsters can show affection, while others noticed that the female Muto's abdomen is emitting orange-yellow light. That is a sign that the female Muto is about to lay eggs. Although I know that Godzilla killed the Mutos and even killed them to extinction, I still feel a little scared when I think of this monster reproducing on the earth again. Damn, I didn't show off to my friends on 520, and I didn't show off to my couples when I went out. I was fed a mouthful of dog food by two monsters late at night. When will my letter paper arrive? I've already written the third draft. Chapter 632, a new question and answer mode. So, the nuclear warhead is not an engagement ring, but a newborn's bottle? Does that count as an unmarried pregnancy? River God, your brain circuits are almost as good as Godzilla's. I think they may have more in common, at least compared to us. Bruce Wayne, since the Mutos have electromagnetic pulses, you should also have some unusual means of attack, right? Godzilla, yes, I can use the energy in my body. Bruce Wayne, the energy in your body? Tony Stark, Godzilla should have a natural reactor inside his body. Strange, in other words, it spews out nuclear energy to attack the enemy. Tony Stark, it should be a little more complicated than we expected. Godzilla, atomic breath. Wanda, what? Godzilla, atomic breath, this is the name the theater told me. He said that my skill translated into human language is called atomic breath. Actually it should be radioactive heat rays, but I think atomic breath sounds better. Image continues after the male Muto handed the nuclear bomb in his mouth to the female Muto. He flew away, perhaps to hunt for more food, or perhaps to stop Godzilla from coming. And the female Muto began to dig on the spot, preparing to build a nest and lay eggs directly here. It's really rare that the place that was damaged was not New York, but the Golden Gate Bridge was still demolished. Why did I say it was still demolished? In the military camp, Brody was getting rid of a soldier in charge of evacuation to help find the traces of his wife and children. He promised them to go home, but he broke his promise again and again. At this time, an officer called Brody to the command room. Because of the previous tactical mistakes, the nuclear bomb was brought to the city center by the male Muto, which means that, once the nuclear bomb explodes, at least nearly 100,000 civilians will be affected by nuclear radiation. What's more fatal is that the nuclear bomb has started the countdown, and what's more fatal is that, because of the racial talent of the Muto, all electronic equipment within a 5-mile range of the Muto will fail. So if they want to stop the nuclear bomb, they must parachute, because they can't walk on the ground, and they have to parachute from an altitude of 30,000 feet. However, Dr. Serizawa gave a different opinion, starting the search from underground, because Dr. Serizawa knew very well that once the Mutos lay eggs, they must complete the nesting behavior before laying eggs, and the Mutos' nests must be built underground, and the nuclear warheads must be in the nests. The human side arranged two plans. One is to dismantle the bomb. If it can be successful, it would be great. The second is to transport the nuclear warheads onto the ship, and then use the ship to transport the nuclear warheads to the sea. The farther the better. As the only survivor of the train accident, a bomb disposal expert, and the only person who adjusted the nuclear warhead at the scene, Brody was selected to participate in this mission. Loki Odinson, look. What did I say? Even if Ford dies, he must die in this kind of mission, because he has extremely high luck and status, and is an important supporting role in this movie. After arranging the task, the Admiral and Dr. Serizawa walked out of the command room and looked into the distance. At this point, the Admiral had to believe in Dr. Serizawa's theory of natural balance. Doctor, do you think the Predator King you mentioned has a chance to win? Humans always think they control nature, but the result is often the opposite. Dr. Serizawa did not answer the Admiral's words directly, but said, "Let them fight." The plane has taken off. On the plane, a soldier is holding a Bible and praying. Ford is narrating beside him. He also picked up something, but it is not a Bible, but a photo of his wife and son, and the source of his motivation, to survive again and again. "You are my strength and my faith. For you, I dare to face all the dangers in the world. Artillery fire, nuclear bombs, and titans are the same." With the red lights and urgent alarms, the soldiers put on their equipment, especially after repeatedly checking the parachutes, and fell from a height of 10,000 meters, flying towards their targets. On the ground, the whole of San Francisco has become a mess. In order to let the female Muto lay eggs in peace, the male Muto took the initiative to fight Godzilla. Although it has advantages in flexibility and speed, and also has a geographical advantage, that is, it can fly, but Godzilla makes up for all these shortcomings with one move, which is almost a crushing force. The male Muto of more than 30 meters is like an elephant looking at frogs and locusts in front of humans, but in front of the 100-meter tall Godzilla, the male Muto has turned back into a dwarf, and can only rely on the advantage of flying to fight guerrilla warfare. The paratroopers of the human military landed one after another, and began to perform their tasks. Although the signal of the radio was intermittent due to the electromagnetic pulse, some instruments could barely be used under the protection of special materials. After searching for the location of the nuclear bomb, they wanted to go there quickly, but were intercepted by the giant in front of them. It was the female Muto laying eggs. At this time, Godzilla, who was like a mountain, had also walked over and ordered the female Muto. The male Muto didn't know where it went, but it was killed. Seeing this, the female Muto also went up to fight Godzilla. The human army took the opportunity to run towards their goal. In a room with a wasteland style, they found a nuclear warhead wrapped in densely packed Muto eggs. Those eggs radiated orange-yellow light. It was roughly estimated that there were at least hundreds of them, and there were already small Mutos in them. Can they give birth so well? Looking at the huge number of Muto nests, everyone couldn't help but feel numb. If all these things really hatched and grew into complete bodies, then I'm afraid the entire Earth might not be enough for them to live. Question begins. How many Mutos can survive in a nest under normal circumstances? Why? This question is a counting and quick answer question. When you count to 1, you can start answering. The number does not move during the answering time. This question has 2 questions and can be answered twice. Answering this question quickly will punish you with a pain card. If you answer incorrectly, you will not draw a card. If you answer correctly, you will be awarded 10 points. Start counting now. 3, 2, 5, 6, 32, 55, 61. Li Jigan, the god and the devil? So the new mode of answering quickly is that you don't care what the first number is, you can only answer after 1. Have you been bored for too long? Do you want to have some fun? That's what they said, but the people who wanted to answer became more nervous. Because this thing really depends on concentration. Chapter 633, Godzilla, look at me, the dragon's tail. Ganetha's answer is correct, reward 10 points. Bruce Wayne's answer is correct, reward 10 points. Everyone looked discouraged, and they were surprised that they lost to Janitor in terms of speed. It seemed reasonable. They knew more or less about Janitor's origin. Although most people here could only guess the exact strength of Galactus, based on Janitor and Strange's statements, Janitor was at least a demigod in their opinion. In Janitor's own words, except that he did not have a divine position, and did not have to go to work, he enjoyed the treatment of a cosmic god, and did not have to work overtime like most cosmic gods. In other words, he was not much different from a cosmic god. In a sense, Janitor seemed to live a more comfortable life. Except that because she inherited her father's attributes, hunger was inevitable. Janitor looked at everyone, a little embarrassed, and planned not to answer next time. The answer Janitor gave was 2. However, for Bruce Wayne's successful answer, everyone could only say that they had entered a misunderstanding. They only noticed that they had to count 1 to answer, but the screening room did not say whether this 1 was a simple 1, or whether it was enough to count the numbers containing 1. Of course, it is possible that someone else thought of it, but Bruce Wayne put it into practice. The answer given by Bruce Wayne was to raise Boo. Hundreds of mutos were hatched, and then they grew up, while absorbing nuclear energy, and killing their brothers. Only the two strongest ones were qualified to survive and mate. There was pheromone interference between the female mutos and the male mutos, and the female mutos and the male mutos would not attack each other, which is why exactly two of them survived every time. Godzilla, is this the reason for the birth of the Supreme Muto? The reason why the Supreme Muto is so strong is that the Supreme Muto is likely to have undergone some mutation, and all the mutos were eaten up. Even the female mutos are no exception. Wonder, but in that case, wouldn't the mutos be directly exterminated? Strange, there may be more than one pair of mutos, or the Supreme Muto has undergone a secondary mutation, becoming hermaphrodite, and self-reproducing a group of offspring. Even with the strength of the Supreme Muto mentioned by Godzilla, it may be easier to hunt. Wonder, can it be like this? Strange, don't underestimate the determination of any race that can survive to this day to continue its bloodline. Male-female conversion, self-reproduction, and hermaphroditism are not worth mentioning in the face of survival. Image continues in the underground nest. The soldiers dismantled the nuclear warhead, and there were only 27 minutes left. In the battle on the ground, the male Muto's life and death are unknown, and the female Muto can't hold on. The female Muto was pressed to the ground and beaten by Godzilla, and it looked like she was about to be beaten to death. But at this moment, a black shadow flashed from the sky, and its sharp barbs and claws pierced into Godzilla's skin, and it overturned Godzilla under the action of kinetic energy. Male Muto. Godzilla. Godzilla, the male Muto should be dead. I killed the male Muto before, and then I tore the female Muto into pieces, and the Muto's nest was burned by fire. Loki Odinson. In other words, the story here is different from the situation in your world. Godzilla, that's right. Peter Parker, there's nothing strange about this. The stories of many of us have changed because of the screening room, and the screening given by the screening room is just a possibility in the future. After the male Muto dragged Godzilla away, the female Muto followed closely and launched a fierce attack. In the underground nest, the soldiers also encountered trouble. Because the nuclear warhead was sealed by the mucus of the Muto, they could not defuse the bomb manually and could only use the backup plan, that is, to transport the nuclear warhead away and transport it to the sea. And Ford had a brand new idea. After his companions moved the nuclear warhead away, Ford opened a valve and the engine oil spread from it. The female Muto, who was still beating Godzilla with her husband, suddenly felt a jolt in her heart, but before she could turn around, a fierce flame broke out in the direction of the nest. The house was stolen. Godzilla was stunned for a moment, and finally understood why the Muto's nest was on fire. At that time, after he knocked down the male Muto, he fought with the female Muto. Although these guys were not as big and strong as him, they had to hunt the atomic dinosaurs to reproduce, so they evolved a whole set of skills for atomic dinosaurs. The electromagnetic pulse can suppress the atomic breath in Godzilla's body, and the sharp barbs of the Muto can also cut his scales. If the two Mutos attacked together, he would really be in big trouble. Just like himself on the screen. Godzilla now has a new understanding of humans. Although they are still weak, they can also play a big role. The video continues. The female Muto immediately got angry and ran home without caring about Godzilla. The male Muto also hurried back after knocking Godzilla down. However, when the two Mutos returned, they could only see the burnt cocoon and a human crawling on the ground. The furious female Muto didn't know whether the other party had stolen her home, but it was no longer important. Now the female Muto continued to vent her anger. It's not just the female Muto who needs to vent her anger. A light blue or blue-white light slowly lit up like a lamp, accompanied by a strange buzzing sound. This was the blue light that lit up from the dorsal fin on Godzilla's tail. Godzilla slowly got up in the smoke and came to the female Muto. The almost white atomic breath hit the female Muto. Even though it was weakened by an unknown amount, the violent atomic breath still hit the female Muto so hard that she fell to the ground. Just when Godzilla was about to give the female Muto a fatal blow, the male Muto, who was eager to protect his wife, fell from the sky and knocked Godzilla down again. For some reason, the female Muto ignored her husband who was fighting with Godzilla and ran over to grab the nuclear bomb. On the other side, Godzilla wanted to hit the flying Muto, but couldn't hit it because his arms were too short. He was particularly irritated. It felt like hitting a mosquito. It was fine if he couldn't hit it, but it was still provoking you by your ear. Suddenly, Godzilla narrowed his eyes and quietly waited for the next attack of the male Muto. Bang! With a dragon's tail swing, the male Muto made Godzilla hit a skyscraper with his tail and hit it directly into it. The BGM was stopped, and most people couldn't stop it. Fly. Why don't you fly? You are the only one who can fly, right? Due to the excess of force, the skyscraper collapsed, burying Godzilla and Muto underneath. When Godzilla slowly stood up, he happened to meet Ford's eyes who had fled all the way here. The man and the beast slowly looked at each other, and then the huge head disappeared in the smoke. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634, Godzilla's Gift Pack, a spiritual masterpiece. The female Muto has approached the ship carrying the nuclear bomb. The gunpowder weapons of humans hit the Muto like small firecrackers. It may hurt, but it is impossible to kill the Muto with these things. Seeing this, Ford dragged his injured leg onto the ship and started the ship's autopilot system. As a result, the ship failed directly due to the electromagnetic pulse force field of the Muto. Seeing that he couldn't run away, Ford took out his pistol and prepared to fight to the death. He also knew that facing this monster, that even the howitzer might not be able to break through the defense. The small pistol in his hand was no different from a water gun, but he had to do something, such as showing the courage of humans to this damn monster. But just before Ford was about to shoot, a big mouth bit the Muto's neck tightly. When Godzilla bit the Muto's neck, the battle was a foregone conclusion. Godzilla held the Muto's upper and lower jaws tightly with his claws, aiming at the Muto's mouth. Ha-ta. A pure white atomic breath poured directly from the mouth of the Muto into the body of the Muto. The Muto did have an electromagnetic pulse force field that suppressed Godzilla's atomic breath. The carapace could resist the high temperature of the atomic breath, and the barbs on the feet could easily cut Godzilla's skin, but its internal organs were still fragile. Or in other words, the internal organs of most creatures are fragile. Godzilla's atomic breath bloomed directly in the body of the Muto, and the ultra-high temperature rays directly burned the organs in the body of the Muto into charcoal. In the end, the neck of the Muto was directly burned by Godzilla, leaving only a head in Godzilla's hand. The battle is over. Holding the head of the Muto in his hand, Godzilla raised his head and roared to the sky, announcing his victory. And Ford on the ship had closed his eyes and quietly waited for the arrival of death. The nuclear bomb explosion was only a matter of minutes, and he was no longer able to escape. But at this time, a dazzling light came on, and Ford almost thought it was the holy light of heaven, although he himself did not believe in Jesus Christ. It's the human military's rescue. Muto is dead, and the electromagnetic pulse force field is exposed, and human modern equipment can finally be started. Ford was rescued in a coma, and Godzilla fell in the city. Ford and his son Sam were placed in a temporary shelter converted from the stadium. The rescue work outside was still going on. Fortunately, Ellie was not injured. She came here covered in dust, and the family was finally reunited. In the center of the city, Dr. Serizawa had his first close contact with Godzilla. Looking at Godzilla covered in dust and blood, Dr. Serizawa thought it was dead. But at this moment, Godzilla sneezed slowly and woke up from his sleep. The king woke up. Humans cheered, and the king once again announced its victory with a deafening roar, and finally dived into the water and disappeared. Godzilla is finished. I thought it was dead. It's normal to take a break after a big battle. Godzilla, my atomic breath consumes a lot of energy, especially when it is suppressed by the Mutos. Not only is its power reduced, but it also consumes more energy. When I'm tired, I'll take a nap on the spot. Yeah, just like us. Hikari said, when we Ultra Warriors fight, we also save our light skills for the last. Godzilla Easter eggs start playing. Skull Island is just the beginning. There are still many giant beasts sleeping. The masters of this world are not us, but those titans. They are the real rulers, and they will take this world back from us sooner or later. With the voice of the narrator, one mural after another flashed by quickly. The first one to appear was a giant beast like a lizard. Although the painting style was abstract, it was still clear that it was Godzilla. Immediately followed by a giant beast in the air with flames and a giant moth. Then came two giant bugs, a giant with shoulders as big as a mountain, a full-egg giant beast like a shield dragon, and an oversized lobster. The last one to appear was a three-headed golden dragon with two wings. And that three-headed golden dragon was still fighting with Godzilla. Even though the murals were extremely rough, one could still see the horrific destruction caused by the energy waves of both sides. Godzilla Easter egg end. Are those all monsters in Godzilla's world? Godzilla, the last one is not. Bruce Wayne, the last one. You mean the three-headed golden dragon with two wings? Godzilla, it fell from the sky and wanted to modify the world environment. In the end, we defeated it together. Bruce Wayne, join forces? Your people. Godzilla, no, it's the other titans. They are all the strongest in their respective tribes. Even the Supreme Muto is among them. Gandalf, you guys will join forces as enemies. Godzilla, because it is really strong. So strong that none of our tribes can fight it alone, and it wants to change the world and destroy our homes, which is something we cannot tolerate no matter what. We have united under the call of blood to resist the invasion of foreign enemies together. Gandalf, but he is also a creature of this world. Godzilla, no, it is not. It is a creature that descended from an alien planet. It descended from the starry sky to this land and brought destruction to this land. Godzilla, that guy is not only strong, but also can fly. I don't know why, but I can always feel Godzilla's strong resentment when I see this sentence. Godzilla, he flew in the air, and in the end it was Mothra, Rodan and Supreme Mutus who joined forces to shoot it down into the sea, and the ocean is my home. Godzilla, but even so, I couldn't kill it. I could only severely injure it, and finally it was frozen by us. Ace, why didn't you take that opportunity to deal with it? You are letting the tiger go back to the mountain. Godzilla, I can't do it. Godzilla, wait a minute. Godzilla, who was sulking in the sea, suddenly saw three big gift bags appear in front of him. When he saw the three big gift bags, Godzilla's instinctive perception suddenly activated, and his perception told him that there was something very important inside. Very important. Godzilla, thank you very much for your explanation. You can choose one of these three gift bags as a gift. Only one. Godzilla's brainwaves were transmitted, and at this time, the text on the screen changed again. It's not that you can't choose to, but you have to sign this. The content of the gift bag has been sent to the group. When the time comes, everyone can vote on what I will give. Chapter 635, Godzilla's Amazing Journey. Dr. Serizawa, come and see this. In a base of the Monarch Project, the military is beginning to take over here. As the highest ranking and most capable senior member of the Monarch Project, Dr. Serizawa still has a high status. For Dr. Serizawa, a researcher who is obsessed with studying titans, as long as it does not delay his research, it does not matter to him who is in charge of the Monarch Project. A researcher in charge of monitoring the titans called Dr. Serizawa over, and some officers who followed Dr. Serizawa also rushed over, but when they saw the picture on the screen, they were all stunned, and Dr. Serizawa looked as if he was about to vomit blood. Godzilla, can you still fly? Hearing the words of an officer, Dr. Serizawa slowly said, although I'm not a physics major, I know that Godzilla's flying method is definitely not in line with physics. So, what is going on? Dr. Serizawa was stunned, and so were the others. Godzilla can swim, go ashore, and resist nuclear bombs. These are nothing. Titans are giants, so some of their special abilities are reasonable. But why do you, a lizard, fly in such a weird posture? On the screen, Godzilla clenched his two claws, raised one claw to the sky, and placed the other claw on his chest, and slowly flew towards the sky. What is this? Super Godzilla. Godzilla's flying method was incomprehensible to them. If Godzilla had wings, they would not have such a hard time accepting it. But the problem was that Godzilla's body size really made it impossible to understand how it took off. In the Pacific Ocean, Godzilla was feeling the joy of flying. This was an ability he got from 2 gift packs. Flying. Skill. Unreasonable flying. Introduction. Don't care about gravity, biological force field, inertial potential energy. Just fly. Effect. As long as you make the specified action, you can fly. A very simple skill explanation made Godzilla feel the long lost happiness. If I had this skill, how could I let the little bug Muto beat me all over? Doctor, we predicted that Godzilla is flying towards the sky at a speed of about 100 kilometers per hour. 100 kilometers per hour. The speed of airplanes during World War I. Almost. Wait, shit. Godzilla changed his posture, opened his mouth with his head facing down, and a blue light shone on his dorsal fin. Unlike the pale white light emitted during the battle with Muto, this time, Godzilla used almost all his strength in atomic breath. Theoretically, as long as Godzilla controls it properly, he can fly with the help of the recoil of atomic breath. But due to practical problems, this result only exists in theory. But when Godzilla gained unreasonable flight, this theory became a practical effect. At this moment, it was like a rocket booster was activated, and a blue tail flame blasted towards the sea surface. Thanks to Godzilla's ability to restrain himself, and the sea as a buffer, the super high temperature only boiled the seawater within a few miles, and did not cause any crazy effects such as drilling through the Earth's core. Dr. Serizawa asked blankly, what is Godzilla's speed now? It's about to break through the troposphere and reach the stratosphere. Can its body really withstand this acceleration? It's about to reach the mesosphere. He can fly, and you are still considering whether his body can withstand this acceleration? Dr. Serizawa and a group of researchers were dumbfounded, and a group of officers were about to explode. If this thing gets crazy one day and flies over a city in its own flight mode to play bungee jumping, no matter if it is okay, the city will definitely be in trouble with its tonnage. The response plan for the 2 monsters must be accelerated. One officer even thought that the gorilla kept on the island could also take off from the spot. If it took off from the spot, the protective facilities installed should, perhaps, probably, definitely be unable to stop it. The officer quickly recalled the data information of the gorilla. So far, the other party has not shown any extraordinary abilities. Except for its large size and the ability to use tools, the gorilla is no different from an ordinary gorilla. So even if the other party can fly, it should not fly too fast. Probably. It's impossible that the gorilla suddenly learned to fly in the clouds. No way, no way, no way. More than 10 minutes later, Godzilla successfully broke through the atmosphere and came to outer space. This is the first time Godzilla left the Earth, where he was born and raised, and came to the beautiful starry sky. Godzilla, who set foot in the starry sky for the first time, said that there is a huge difference between here and the starry sky he guessed. Thinking of this, Godzilla took out the second gift. Props, Great Library Grade 8 Earth Level Reading Card. Introduction. The Great Library, as the name suggests, is a very large library. The 8th grade Earth Level Reading Card allows you to enter the library and read once every 48 hours, and each reading time is 8 hours. Effect. Just recite enter the library in your mind. Enter the library? The reading card of the Great Library turned into a stream of light and circled around Godzilla, then landed on Godzilla and turned into a heart-protecting scale, and a light gate appeared in front of it. Although he didn't know what it was, Godzilla believed that his instinctive perception would not harm him, so he stepped into the light gate without hesitation. On the other side of the light gate, there was a wooden floor made of unknown wood. There was a faint fragrance in the air. Although I didn't know what the fragrance was, it made people feel refreshed and refreshed. Friend, is this your first time here? Godzilla recovered and looked at the golden monkey in front of him. The monkey was almost the same height as him. No, it was a little shorter than him. Godzilla nodded. Hey, my name is Wukong. The shopkeeper gave me this 9th grade heaven level reading card. What about you, friend? The screening room, 8th grade earth level. Never heard of it. The monkey smiled happily and circled around Godzilla. Godzilla was not annoyed. He could feel that the monkey had no ill intentions and was just curious. My home is in the water curtain cave in the flower and fruit mountain in the Dongsheng Shenzhou. I'm the mountain king there. Later, I went to the shopkeeper's store to read books. Later, I worked for the shopkeeper. The monkey pointed to a shining golden monkey hair on his arm and said, "The shopkeeper is very good. He taught me to read and wrote, and gave me a reading card." The monkey was talking, but suddenly shut up, jumped away lightly, and bowed behind Godzilla. "Wukong, no noises allowed in the library." "Sir, I was wrong. I was too excited to see a new friend." "Yes." Godzilla turned his head and saw an ordinary old man with white hair and beard, who nodded to him and said to the monkey, "Go and be quiet." "Yes." Seeing the old man say this, the monkey could only leave honestly, but before leaving, he couldn't help but wink at Godzilla. "Come with me." The old man smiled at Godzilla, led Godzilla through the door, and came to a venue. "You can read the books here, but you must not destroy them. There are other people in the library, so you must speak softly here. Don't learn from that monkey." Godzilla nodded. Although this old man was very ordinary, he always felt that this old man was too ordinary, so ordinary that he seemed to blend into everything around him. At this moment, the monkey came out from nowhere. "Sir, I want to enter this venue, too." "You monkey." The old man didn't say much, but once again told the monkey not to disturb others and left. Looking at the old man's back, Godzilla couldn't help asking, "Wukong, who is the sir?" "The sir is the sir." The monkey looked at Godzilla, who was scratching his head, and couldn't help saying, "The person who issued you the certificate is also the same. Although you have awakened your intelligence, you have never read books. It's really wrong to send you directly to this venue. You should go to the Kyling Pavilion to study for a few days first." "You monkey, you dare to talk nonsense after being taught a lesson by the master." Seeing this, the woman in green came over and tapped the monkey's head. "Miss Penglay, my brother has never read books and has no culture." "Godzilla, what are you doing?" "Replying to messages." After Godzilla replied to the message in the screening room, he turned his head and saw the monkey's big eyes full of curiosity and thirst for knowledge. Seeing this, Pension immediately knew that if the monkey didn't figure it out today, he would not be able to read the book, so he quickly took Godzilla and the monkey to a study room. "This is the study room. We won't disturb the outside. Let's talk here." Pension poured tea for Godzilla and himself, and said to the monkey with eager eyes, "This monkey is so smart that he can learn everything he sees and remember everything he sees, but he just can't calm down. I'm a monkey, of course I can't calm down." Godzilla then noticed that he had been moving non-stop since he came here. After Godzilla briefly explained the story of the screening room to the two, Pension and the monkey were not too surprised, but the monkey became interested in the screening room. "Wukong, go read a book." "Miss Pension, I'm here to accompany Godzilla. It's his first time here, and he doesn't know the way." "I can accompany Godzilla. He is an 8th grade Earth level, and he only has 1 hour of reading opportunity every 48 hours. This opportunity is hard to come by. How can I play with you here? Go quickly. If you don't let me go, I will complain to the shopkeeper." "Got it." The monkey left in disgrace. Pension took Godzilla back to the previous venue and introduced, "This is the physics hall. There are books related to physics. I have a preliminary understanding of your situation. You can start with these." Pension brought a pile of books. The title of the top book was An Introduction to Nuclear Energy, and then The Formation of the Sun, the difference between nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, and how to make a controlled nuclear fusion reactor, to deal with homework assigned by the physics teacher. "Let's start with these. Your library card can not only be used here, but also in other venues. However, this place is more suitable for you. The wisdom of the legendary Titan beast is not so great that it cannot understand these basic books. By the way, I will also answer your previous question. Sir, I'm just an ordinary librarian. My last name is Lear, and my courtesy name is Boyang." Pension smiled and said, "You can also call me Leozi." Chapter 636, X-Men, Apocalypse, now on air. The book about the plot connection between Godzilla and the Great Library is placed in the small theater. Godzilla has gained the ability to fly, and a library reading card. "Library?" Janitor said, "There is also a big library on my father's spaceship. That library should be different. I guess it's probably a place like a screening room." "A place like a screening room? It's just my guess, but the future of that world will probably be very exciting." Now playing X-Men Apocalypse. Due to the large number of characters involved in this show, after careful consideration by the screening room, Professor X-Men Charles was selected as the special guest of this screening. Why not me? Eric was not convinced. Ultra Father, Clark and Godzilla all had special identities and could get a gift. Other people of the same period as him also gained a lot. However, he, one of the oldest veterans of the screening room, ended up with almost all his superpowers wiped out. Although Peter gave him a purple card, that thing was only enough for him to recover a very small part of his strength. This is not enough at all. Why should it be you? The indifferent and playful attitude of the screening room made Eric run away on the spot, but he could do nothing but rage. Peter quickly sat next to him to prevent him from doing anything extreme. X-Men Apocalypse is on air. Mutants, they are born with extraordinary talents, but they are still immature, groping in the dark, looking for a lease, and talents can also become a curse. With wings, they will want to get closer to the sun. With the ability to predict the future, he will live in fear of the future. If a person is given unparalleled power, he will want to rule the world. Against the background of the opening remarks, the picture flashed quickly and finally appeared in front of a huge pyramid. Nile Valley, 3600 BC. Mysterious patterns were painted on the pyramid, and countless slaves called out a name. Ensabana. Listening to the narration given by the screening room, Magneto felt even more heartbroken, and he felt that the screening room seemed to be targeting him. Charles, the Nile Valley in 3600 BC, isn't that the ancient Egyptian civilization? Ensabana, what is the name of the pharaoh? Eric, God knows. Do you have any research on a dead person who lived 5,000 years ago? Charles, Eric, don't get too excited, I'm just thinking about it. Seeing that the projection room changed its name from Magneto to Eric on the screen, Eric himself almost lost his temper. MD, what does it mean? Countless slaves knelt on the ground and shouted a name, and a person who was wrapped in gold decorations all over his body on a land boat made of pure gold was accepting the cheers. In the guard team on the side, a guard and a guard standing on the wall exchanged glances briefly, as if they had some plan. The golden boat was carried into a pyramid, and 4 robed men wearing golden masks took off their masks, revealing 4 faces that were not like ordinary people. The dynasty established by Ensabana should be a dynasty ruled by mutants. Bruce Wayne quickly judged, this story should be the story of you mutants. It doesn't make sense to invite Professor X as a special guest. In ancient Egypt, there were pharaohs with divine power. The pharaohs also used these so-called miracles and powers to control ordinary people and slaves. In the ordinary world without magic or superpowers, the pharaohs may use some physical skills, but in the world with gods, the pharaohs should be able to communicate with the gods. As for the world of X-Men, the pharaohs may be mutants who control powerful forces. The mask at the top was taken off, and an old blue face appeared. He is Ensabana, also known as Apocalypse. Apocalypse, aren't these the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the Christian mythology, who will bring 4 disasters to mankind? The earliest believers of the Christian mythology were slaves of the Egyptians, that is, the YSL people today. Many Christian myths actually have the shadow of Egyptian mythology. It's hard to say who is the grandfather and who is the grandson. Among the 4 highest-ranking subordinates of Apocalypse, a woman covered in gold jewelry said in ancient Egyptian, "Now, you will rule the world forever, my master." On the altar in front of Apocalypse, a man with shaved hair all over his body was placed there. An Apocalypse Knight held a sharp blade and cut open the man's stomach, but in a very short time, the other party recovered from the wound. Logan, this is my super healing ability. Logan, no. There are actually quite a few people with this ability. Forget it, this is not the point, but what is this guy going to do? Exclamation mark. Question begins. What is Apocalypse going to do? This question and answer is a quick answer mode. If you answer correctly, you will be awarded 10 points. If you answer incorrectly, you will draw a pain card. Now, start the quick answer. What is Apocalypse going to do? Everyone heard this and immediately began to think. Among the group of people, there was one person who was particularly anxious. For most people, 10 points more is not much more, and the pain card will only be uncomfortable for a few days, so it is not very urgent. But there is one person who is not so anxious, that is Eric, who has been broken through the defense and his mentality exploded. Why? Eric thought hard and wanted to pull out all his hair. Apocalypse is very old. As a person of a very high status, the first thing he should do is not to want to die, Peter said deliberately. After Eric heard this, he suddenly said, Apocalypse is going to use a certain secret method to transfer his soul into the body of the sacrifice, seize the other party's young body and let himself continue to live. The answer is not completely correct, and a Q&A card is awarded. Seeing that he finally recovered some blood, Eric's expression was not so ugly. Charles, that guy, always said that knowledge is power. This Q&A card should also be able to tell me how to restore my strength or simply gain more powerful power. Logan, yes, but not completely right. Charles, judging from the other party's proficiency, it's probably not the first time that the other party has held this kind of ceremony. Bruce Wayne, don't ignore the hints given by the previous screening room. In fact, many answers have been told to us by the screening room long ago. Peter Parker, hints? You mean the narration in the previous screening room? Bruce Wayne, that's right. I think the keyword is the word rule mentioned by the screening room. Tony Stark, there is another key point. The woman in the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse said something, saying, now, the Smurf will rule the world forever. Tony Stark, not that you will continue to rule the world, but now rule forever, from now on, from the beginning of the ceremony? Exclamation mark. Bruce Wayne, obviously, the ritual is the key. The central idea of what Eric said can be distilled into seizing the body. If Apocalypse can obtain the abilities of the other body after changing the body, a mutant body with super healing power can indeed allow Apocalypse to survive and live for a very long time. In the era 5,000 years ago, 60 years old could be considered longevity. Even in modern times, the average life expectancy of humans does not exceed 90 years old, while Logan has easily lived for hundreds of years and is still in his prime. Logan, if the unfortunate guy who was thrown on the altar and had his hair shaved all over his body is like me, then he can at least live for 200 or 300 years. Constantine, do you know? There is a kind of witch called Ghost Mother. They sell the souls of their children to the devil in hell in exchange for various abilities. If they change a little, then Apocalypse's behavior seems to be very clear. Logan, however, similar statements have been confirmed and can only be said to be incorrect. Constantine, you also said that it is not quite right, but we can deepen it on this basis. For example, Apocalypse extracted the life energy of the sacrifice? Does anyone plan to try this answer? The Lord looked at Apocalypse on the screen, frowning. He was very familiar with possession magic. He once wanted to possess Jackie Chan and then use the power of this opponent to liberate the devil, but he never thought that he would overturn and possess the idiot Valen, and then he messed up everything, gaining the opponent's life instead of possession. Then, Lord, I understand. Apocalypse has the ability to seize the ability of the sacrifice. In other words, he sees the healing ability of the sacrifice. Lord, Apocalypse has definitely done this more than once, but what he gained was not the healing ability. So the Apocalypse Knight said that he can rule the world forever from now on, because the activation of Apocalypse's ability must require some restrictions, and the restrictions on switching bodies are also very large, so large that Apocalypse will never do it, unless he has to. Lord, but after gaining the healing ability, Apocalypse no longer needs to worry. The Lord answered correctly, and he was awarded 10 points. Wanda, no way, this is like putting your soul into another body. Constantine, no, maybe, the golden liquid is not the meaning of soul transfer, but the energy in the sacrifice is transmitted back into Apocalypse. The video continues. Apocalypse slowly lay on the altar, and the ceremony began. Under the guidance of the priest wearing white linen, the knights and priests in the pyramid chanted mysterious but useless spells, while outside, the slaves pulled down the cloth covering the top of the pyramid, revealing the top of the pyramid made of gold. Under the light, the runes on the golden corners at the top of the pyramid are like circuit boards, channeling the energy of the sun into each inscription, and finally into the pyramid. First, if there is a book about the connection between Godzilla and the Great Library, it is the author's next book, Cold Knowledge. In fact, there are golden corners on the real pyramids, of course. They are gone now. Why are they gone? They were dismantled by someone. Then the question is, who dismantled them? That must be because of the lack of great virtue. So dying has changed from the sun never setting to the sun not setting. Maybe it is the curse of the pharaoh. Chapter 637 question. Revelation ceremony. The energy of the sun poured into the pyramid and finally gathered on the altar. The mysterious rune light lit up, and the body of Apocalypse on the altar and the body of the sacrifice floated up at the same time. Apocalypse even had a blue gas-like smoke on his body. The ceremony was in progress, and the guards outside finally started to act. They revealed the trap they had prepared long ago. 2 guards knocked down the mechanism activation device that had been set up long ago at the same time, and a huge rectangular square brick rushed directly into the pyramid along the said slide. In the pyramid, while the ceremony was in progress, the guards who had already held the Heart of Dying activated the mechanism, and huge stones fell and closed the entrance and exit. Kill the false god. As mortals, they are doing something that affects the direction of the entire world's history. Resistance. As humans, they resist the mutants who are gamma or even delta level. In this era, it is tantamount to humans fighting against gods. Looking at the picture on the screen, the 3 mutants were filled with emotion. The one who was most stimulated was Eric. He was the one who suffered the most persecution among the 3 mutants. When the theater admitted that Apocalypse and his 4 knights were mutants, Eric really didn't expect that the mutants in the past were not only the rulers of this world, but also turned humans into slaves. This is completely different from the current status of mutants. But Eric was immediately discouraged. He had no mutant powers anymore, so what was he thinking about? Turning his head, Eric saw the expressions on the faces of the others. Seeing their admiration for those humans who resisted Apocalypse, Eric was even more determined that they were not the same kind of people as him. Although Peter was very good to him, he was not a mutant after all. He could not understand his own pain. Mutants must restore the glory of the Apocalypse era. To restore the glory of the Apocalypse era, the best way is to learn from Apocalypse and use powerful power to directly enslave humans. Although I don't know how strong Apocalypse is, I can ask Logan or Charles to ask the projection room about his differentiation of mutant power. With their understanding of the projection room, the projection room doesn't mind answering such basic questions. Charles is very powerful. As long as he wants, he can easily control a small country. But that pedantic guy just doesn't want to. He used to try his best to get along with Charles. They were trying to use their own ideas to convince each other. But when Eric lost his power, his heart changed a little. A person who didn't have a good childhood usually uses his life to make up for the shadow of his childhood. Eric's original psychological defects were made up by his power, and now he has lost his power, and his psychological problems have gradually begun to show. Although his heart can be comforted when reading the scripture that Peter gave him, the effect of this comfort gradually dissipated with the passage of time. His former power was only enough to destroy a city. It was far from enough to cause a cross-era blow to human civilization like Apocalypse on the screen. But what if he had the power of Apocalypse, or Apocalypse was resurrected? An increasingly crazy idea appeared in Eric's mind. The mortal guards who tried to resist were unilaterally hung up and beaten. An Apocalypse Knight could send out energy similar to shockwaves with a clap of his hands, and this energy could accurately send 2 living people, 2 strong men, flying against the wall and turning them into 2 skeletons. The torches placed around the altar were not decorations at all, but weapons to guard the altar. The fire on the 4 torches surged, and under the control of another knight, they turned into 8 fire snakes that crashed into the surrounding rebels. This level of attack is like a moth to a flame for the powerful 4 horsemen, but this level is far enough. The rebels know that they can't defeat the powerful false god head on, so they choose to attack at this critical moment, because at this time, Apocalypse, who has the most powerful power, will fall into a deep sleep. Although the other knights are strong, can they resist the fall of tens of millions of tons of boulders? Exclamation mark. The answer is no. Even the 4 knights can't resist the crushing caused by the collapse of the pyramid. The only female knight who has a protective shield also died under the crushing of the boulders. To protect Apocalypse, who has not completed the transformation ceremony. Is this the reason for the demise of the ancient Egyptian dynasty of that era? Jonathan Osterman, Drive Manhattan. Although they are completely different, they have similarities. In the world of X-Men, Apocalypse is the ruler of the ancient Egyptian dynasty. In my world, through my observation of the timeline, I found that the development of the Egyptian dynasty is not much different. Without excessive human interference, the Egyptian dynasty will generally move towards a predetermined ending. Jonathan Osterman, Drive Manhattan, and Apocalypse. Apocalypse is the pharaoh. After the pharaoh died, he was mummified and placed in the pyramid. Apocalypse, when he was about to die of old age, chose a new sacrifice and was reborn. This actually coincides with the ancient Egyptians' belief that the soul would return to resurrection after death. Charles, but if there were no human warriors, our modern civilization would not have been developed. Eric, warriors? Charles, which side are you on? Charles, Eric, I just admire their courage to challenge the gods. Eric didn't want to listen to the explanation of this old friend who was so crooked that his butt was crooked. Because of the lack of power, Eric, who was increasingly unbalanced in his heart, discovered one thing, that is, Apocalypse should not be dead. Charles, my friend, since you can't save the mutants, and I have lost the power to save the mutants, then I have to seek the help of the power that should not appear in this world. The video continues. The screen switches to a living room. The current time is 1983. A female teacher is giving a class. As she is teaching, she switches the PPT. Magneto, wearing armor and a battlesuit, appears on the screen as the female teacher explains. Lanchaleric attacked the general and the cabinet in the open space in front of the White House. A young mutant stopped him. A picture of a female mutant with red hair and blue skin appears, and the female teacher says at this time that Eric has become a worldwide wanted criminal. That's Raven. Chapter 638, The Awakening of the Mutants. Raven also betrayed me in the future. The next second after this information appeared in Eric's mind, a light and ethereal voice like a clear stream echoed in Eric's mind, and the originally manic mood was restored. Eric suddenly calmed down and began to think. Raven may have betrayed me, but it has nothing to do with my loss of power. Thinking of this, Eric's heart gradually began to calm down. That's right, assassinating the president is a serious crime, plus the overall situation that Charles told me all day long. If I really assassinated and successfully killed a human president as a mutant, or even the leader of mutants, I can run away, but the social status of mutants will only become worse. Although Charles is weak, some of his words do make sense. But as long as I can find Apocalypse, then mutants will no longer have to worry about anyone. Image continues. A young man felt that his eyes were very uncomfortable in the classroom, and he could only try to relieve the discomfort by blinking continuously. But the direction of his blinking was not right, and there happened to be a very beautiful girl. The young man's behavior aroused the anger of another boy. Although they didn't know what the relationship was, the big guy obviously liked the girl, and that was enough. Such stories are always easy to happen between teenagers. There was once a case where two young men fought for love and both died. In the end, the girl said that she didn't like either of them. Scott, who couldn't stand the pain in his eyes, could only try to go to the bathroom to wash his eyes, but when he came to the bathroom, he found that his eyes were flashing red. But before Scott could think about it, the big guy had already chased him. He could only hide in the toilet cubicle in a panic, but the pain in his eyes made him more uncomfortable, and the big guy even found Scott's cubicle and kept knocking on the door of Scott's toilet cubicle. The extreme pain in his eyes and the pressure from the outside world made Scott finally unable to bear it. With an angry roar, two dazzling red lasers shot out from Scott's eyes. The lasers directly knocked the iron door made of iron sheets and the big guy behind the door away. Judging from the force of the collision, it was probably a heavy blow. Fortunately, there was an iron door to help block it, so the big guy saved his life. Scott's eye lasers directly blew the toilet into ruins, and in Berlin today, an underground gambling fight was going on in an underground arena. I don't know if it's because they want to compete with Italy for the orthodoxy of Rome. This casino is not gambling on anything else, but actually, fighting. Yes, put people in cages and fight with non-humans, but a small underground fighting arena can't accommodate lions, Even if it can accommodate a small broken place, it can't afford to feed them. What can we do? The answer is that they are non-humans, mutants, so it's okay. Anyway, in terms of refreshing the moral bottom line, humans have never disappointed humans. Scott's awakening, although there is external pressure in it, but more of it is that he showed signs of awakening first. Bruce Wayne said, "Is the awakening of mutants unpredictable? Charles, my mental power exploration can find these mutants at the first time, but there is almost no difference between the mental power fluctuations of mutants and ordinary people before they awaken their abilities. I can only find them suddenly through mental power at the forefront of their awakening. Charles, Hancock is helping me design a prop that can amplify mental power. If it can be built successfully, I may be able to use this device to scan the world with mental power to find mutants hidden in human society." Bruce Wayne, in other words, mutants are completely unpredictable before they awaken? Logan, I know a little about this. Don't look at me now that I'm fine, even if I'm bombed by an atomic bomb. I was not in good health when I was a child. I caught a cold every time the season changed. Now, let alone catching a cold, I'm shot in minutes. Bruce Wayne, in other words, it is very likely that you will be a powerless person 1 second and become a powerful person the next. And there is no sign. Logan, it's about the same. I also awakened my ability because of some reasons when I was extremely angry. Eric was similar. Charles awakened naturally. The children and the school are both. Bruce Wayne, school? Logan, haven't we talked to you before? Bruce Wayne, never. Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, or X School for short, is a private school I founded to teach those young people who have awakened superpowers in order to prevent them from going astray. Charles, the three of us are teachers in the school. I'm responsible for a wider range of things. Logan is responsible for sports and history, and Eric is responsible for how to control his own abilities. Logan, I also have a part-time art class. The video continues in the arena. A mutant with wings on his back defeated another strong man who was not sure if he was a mutant or not by using a bird-like swooping move, and won 10 consecutive victories in his arena career. As the great contributor to the survival of mankind in the cruel primeval forest, the violent factors have never disappeared, but they are hidden deep in the blood of mankind, and covered up by mankind with a fig leaf called civilization. In this arena, this group of so-called civilized people completely tore off the so-called civilized coat, and the violent factors in their bodies were constantly awakened under the stimulation of blood and fighting. They cheered, they screamed, they went crazy. The life of luxury made them numb and corrupt, and only the violence from the deepest part of their blood could make their blood boil. The guidance of the host made this group of civilized people scream, and they looked down on the failed challengers. Because the people who lost money, because of the failed bits, spit at the challengers who were carried away, and countless dirty words kept coming out of their mouths. And the next challenger was put into a box, and pushed into the electrified arena. The host was eloquent, and through his words, the emotions of the audience reached a new level. Our angel of death has won 10 consecutive victories, and the only one who can compete with the angel is a devil. Let us phantom the blue devil from the Munich circus. Although Wolverine gives people the impression of a tough guy, he is a real aristocrat. Chapter 639, The World 20 years later. The box was opened, and a mutant wearing funny clothes, with blue skin, blue hair, and a blue tail behind him was thrown onto the ring. It was obvious that he definitely didn't want to be on the ring, because when he was thrown out, he was shaking all over. It was different from the trembling of excitement, because of the upcoming battle. This was real fear. As the holder of 10 consecutive victories, Angel rushed over and took the initiative, punching the Blue Devil in the face. The Blue Devil's body dissipated in a burst of blue smoke, and then his body not only appeared on the cage, but then disappeared again and appeared again, and at the same time he was severely electrocuted by the electrified iron cage, and finally fell to the ground. Bruce looked at the Blue Devil, who was almost teleporting over a short distance, and his expression was so complicated that he didn't know what to say. He was sure that if the mutants could really fully develop their abilities, and at the same time have a common goal, a leader who could unite them, then it would be too easy to make that world return to the ancient Egyptian era 5,000 years ago. The reason why humans can suppress mutants is that there are not enough mutants, and they are not united. If there are a few strong men among the mutants, it will be very easy for mutants to rise. What did he see? A mutant with the ability to teleport over short distances or even long distances was thrown into the ring. If this ability is used for infiltration and assassination, it is no more difficult to destroy a small country than to kill a chicken. Let this mutant named Blue Devil sneak into the capital of a country and kill the president and some leaders. The unstable national regime will collapse on the spot. Even a big country will be injured. If he is allowed to train, let alone a team of Blue Devil, even if there is only one mutant like Blue Devil, Bruce himself has the confidence to train him into the most difficult assassin to guard against in the world. If he is allowed to obtain this ability, he can boast that except for Clark, who has not yet found a way to deal with it, everyone else on this planet will have to buy a resurrection armor. Because he is Batman. Bruce felt lucky for the people on that planet, but he also felt a little ridiculous. You actually threw a mutant with such abilities into a circus, and then into the ring. No wonder you mutants are beaten by humans. With this method, no matter how good your talent is, it will be wasted. In just a short period of time, Bruce has come up with some ways to deal with mutants. Not just one or two, but how to wipe out the mutant race. The method is very simple. Mutants have to eat, right? All you have to do is make a batch of genetically modified food that can eliminate mutant genes, and then sell this food to the world. After 100 years, mutants will become a term in history books. Thinking of this, Bruce suddenly felt a little impressed by the excellent matching mechanism between humans and mutants in that world. It is almost comparable to the matching mechanism in the African region. The video continues. Faced with the Angel's attack, the Blue Devil just dodged blindly and did not attack. Seeing this, the Angel said to him directly, "You must fight with me, otherwise we will both die." Yes, they are essentially just commodities, and they stimulate the audience's emotions through life and death fights to make them crazy. If the two do not fight and just hide here, it will be fine in a short period of time, but after a while, the audience's madness will decline and become unhappy. They pay to come here, to see bloodshed and killing. If you make them unhappy, they will leave, and the business here will definitely be ruined. Then, in order to prevent the sound from being ruined, the casino owner will choose to let them be ruined. When the Blue Devil saw the guards with guns around, he chose the former between fighting with the Angel and being carried away, or being beaten like SpongeBob. But the Blue Devil was just a clown in a circus to entertain children. He did not have a clear understanding of his own strength, and he did not know how strong this ability similar to the rule system would suppress the body-enhancing mutant angels. Under the threat of death, the fighting instinct in the Blue Devil was activated, and he easily threw the Angel onto the power grid, which turned the Angel's white feather wings into roasted chicken wings. The Angel lost his ability to fly, but at this moment, the voltage around him suddenly collapsed. After the iron cage lost power, the Angel flew away directly, and the Blue Devil subconsciously flashed out of the iron cage. At this moment, he met a woman. Mystique, Raven. That's Raven, the one you mentioned who can completely mimic herself into another person. Even the iris can be completely mimicked? Yes. The Blue Devil's ability is stronger than I expected, Bruce Wayne said, and he kept thinking in his heart. Originally, he thought that the Blue Devil was only powerful enough to be a moment, but now he saw that the other party could actually lead people to move, which was completely different from the Blue Devil, who was originally only an assassin and spy. Thinking of this, Bruce once again sighed at the perfect matching mechanism in the X-Men world. Eric even noticed that the Blue Devil called Mystique Raven, hero. Become a hero of mankind by stopping yourself? Eric's face was uncertain, but now it was 20 years in the future, and God knew what happened in the past 20 years. Poland, Praskow, in a metal processing factory, workers were working hard. When the bell rang, the workers put down their work and walked out of the factory one after another. Milos, a long-term worker here, patted the shoulder of a worker next to him and said to him, "Go back and have a good sleep, Henrik." "You too, Milos." "That's me." Eric was stunned. Although the face was full of vicissitudes and a beard, how could he not recognize that this was himself? Seeing that in the future, not only did he give up his great ideals and become an ordinary factory worker, but he even drove a broken pickup truck to and from get off work. Eric couldn't believe it all. Even if it was to avoid the worst of mankind, it wouldn't be so thorough. Could it be that after he completely accepted that he had no superpowers in the future, it was wrong? Eric's reasoning ability has also improved under the influence of a bunch of reasoning masters in the screening room. At least, I can't make inferences about others, but I can always make inferences about myself. At that time, I was wearing a suit similar to a battle suit when I assassinated the president. I was able to force the human president to rely on Raven to save him. Although I don't know how Raven did it, the other party definitely forced me into a desperate situation, so my mutant ability has not disappeared. Since it has not disappeared, I should have voluntarily lived in seclusion here. Could this be my base for a development under an assumed name? Thinking of this, Eric finally felt relieved. I was not immersed in the gentle country and planned to give up rationality and live a life with a wife and children with an unknown woman. Eric reasoned all this confidently, and then his reasoning was slapped to pieces by himself on the screen. That self hugged and kissed a woman directly after entering the house. I've been watching John Khan's video recently, and it's a bit weird. Maybe it has a bit of Tangio flavor. Chapter 640, Eric's Happy Life. Eric is not unattractive to women, but he is more of a one-night stand. He doesn't believe that he would really give up so much for a woman. However, the self on the screen is so happy. How long has it been since he smiled from the heart? 1 year, or 10 years? Moreover, he will have a child in the future, or a daughter? The video continues. The couple walked into the courtyard. A girl was feeding the small animals in the forest. The warm sunshine sprinkled on the girl. The small animals around her seemed to obey her command and quietly surrounded the girl. Looking at the angel-like girl, Eric was drunk. At that moment, Eric was really immersed in the beauty given by the screening room. He was persecuted by DC since he was a child and lost his parents and brothers at a very young age. His mother was shot in front of him. Family has always been the shadow that Eric is most reluctant to mention, but when he saw the happiness of another self, Eric even had a moment to think about whether to give it a try. Charles in the X Academy saw his old friend happy on the screen and was even happier than Eric. He was about to say something, but was stopped by Logan. Charles, you can wait a while if you want to bless Eric, but considering some reasons, I think your blessing now will only add fuel to the fire in the future. Logan relied on his instinctive perception to sense the malice from the screening room and said to Charles, who was about to bless and persuade Eric, "Believe me, the screening room has always been inhumane in terms of being inhuman." As the night fell, Eric came to his daughter's window and sang his childhood nursery rhyme. Facing his daughter's question, Eric told his daughter that this song was taught to him by his parents. Now he sang it to her, and one day in the future, she would sing it to her children. Faced with Eric's answer, the girl asked the second question, which was also the deepest pain in Eric's heart. Where are your parents? If it was someone else, Eric would either be furious or cold-faced and leave, but this was his daughter. In front of an old father, the daughter had the highest immunity. When I was very young, they were taken away. Eric's eyes unconsciously fell on a German tattoo next to him. It was the pain of his life, but they are still in my heart. And here, Eric opened the pendant that the girl was wearing. The yellowed black and white photos inside told the old age of the photos. That was a photo of Eric's parents. Seeing the tattoo on the screen, Eric also subconsciously looked at his arm. D3 has been destroyed. NPC has died, but the impact it left behind cannot be compensated or covered up. Captain America, D3 and Hydra again. I didn't expect that in other worlds. Eric, there is no Hydra in my world. Later, I also killed many NPCs. Now I have been chasing a remnant of NPC. Eric, thank you for your contribution to the fight against D3 in that world. Captain America. Eric is particularly easy to talk to on this point. No matter who you are, as long as you fight D3rd, then we are comrades in the same trench. Captain America, thank you for your contribution to that world. Eric, The video continues. The scene comes to a small town where Scott's brother Alex takes his brother, who has just awakened his ability, to a school, the Xavier Charles School for Gifted Youngsters. This is more like a castle of British nobles than a school. Scott even asks a soul-searching question. Is this really a school instead of a library? Because of his eyes, Scott can only cover his eyes with a white cloth, so when he turns a corner, he bumps into a girl with telekinetic abilities. This red-haired girl not only has telekinesis, but also seems to have telepathic abilities. Perhaps after seeing his future happy family, Eric is in a good mood. At least he is willing to take the initiative to talk to Charles. Eric, Charles, is that your future apprentice? Charles, maybe, but Scott is actually Alex's younger brother, Logan. The performances of the two brothers are indeed quite similar, but Alex should be almost 40 years old at this time. The video continues. Alex hasn't been back for a while. At least he was happy to see Hank coming down from upstairs, and joked with Hank about where the big monster with blue hair had gone. Please, I can control it well now. Okay, where's the professor? Charles was in a Chinese class at the moment, and he asked a very classic question. What do you think the author was thinking when he wrote this paragraph? Charles asked a question that every literature teacher would ask. When he saw Alex bring Scott with him, he directly announced the end of the get out of class and made this question today's homework. Welcome here, Scott. Charles took Scott to a lake and asked him to show his superpowers. Don't be afraid, Scott. Charles comforted him. Believe me, the target is on the other side. It's a target for archery. Take off your blindfold and show your talent. I don't think it's a talent. It's always like this at the beginning. The first step for a person to control his ability is to understand it. Only in this way can you learn how to control it. Compared with Charles now, Charles on the screen is much older and more mature, but Charles is more concerned about another thing. Charles, how come I'm in a wheelchair in the future? Logan, we don't know, if you ask me. Strange, there are many possibilities for a person's lower body paralysis. Apart from lesions, such as tumors, the possibility of injury caused by external forces is the greatest, but I can't be sure of the specific reason. There are too many unstable factors. Charles' face is very ugly. His situation is directly reversed from Eric's. Eric is in pain now, but he will be very happy in the future. He is living well now, but his future self is actually paralyzed. Forget it. Although I'm paralyzed, I'm still as elegant and charming as ever. My hair is still extremely lush, and my desire to run a college is growing. At least everything is moving in a good direction. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641, Leading the Explorer. The red-haired girl who was hit by Scott before was also by the lake. She was the one who set up the target. She was practicing archery. When she saw Scott being taken away by the professor and his group, the girl also watched with interest. Come on, take off the straps. Charles looked at the nervous Scott and continued to comfort him. There's nothing to be afraid of, Scott, open your eyes. Charles' words were interrupted by two dazzling red lasers. The red lasers crossed the calm lake and the grass, accurately hitting the target, and then the target exploded on the spot in just 1 second, and then the laser hit a big tree behind the target uncontrollably. The suddenness here startled the other children who were playing in the academy, and Scott quickly closed his eyes after realizing that he had found trouble. Strange. The river god suddenly said, won't Scott's eyelids hurt? It should be, because Scott's eyes are not a simple laser emitter. Tony has some insights on this. The process of activating Scott's laser eyes can be roughly understood like this. When Scott opens his eyes, it's like turning on a switch, and lasers will continue to appear. When he closes his eyes, he turns off the switch for laser emission. When Scott closes his eyes, the lasers do not exist. Yes, Scott's eyes are like a dam that releases floodwaters. Strange also said, that kind of laser. I'm really curious about the mutant's superpowers. Logically speaking, you don't borrow power from the devil or absorb energy, so how do you maintain such a large energy output? Logan's super healing power completely ignores the law of conservation of energy, but you can also find a reason. Hickory also interrupted. As for the psychic abilities of the red-haired girl and Charles, they are also easier to explain. I also have mental skills, but Scott's laser is completely stepping on the law of conservation of energy and jumping on the ground. Wonder, is there a possibility that Scott himself does not have this power, and his superpower is not to shoot lasers, but to open an energy channel? Constantine, interesting, we seem to have the same idea. Strange, energy channel? I think I understand what you mean. Logan, stop being a riddle man. Strange, I once said that our magic power comes from the various demons, and we borrow power from the demons. The powerful demons have their own territories, which we call dimensions. Strange, because it is the demon's own territory, most dimensions are composed of energy bodies. If Scott's ability is combined with a demon or other special fields, such as the elemental field, then it is easy to explain how he, an ordinary person who eats normal food, can burst out such terrifying energy. Strange, because he does not need to generate energy himself, he just opens a channel to guide the energy of a dimension to this world. Strange, but in a sense, this ability is even more terrifying. An ordinary person can directly connect to other dimensions and can control the switch to connect to the exit of that dimension at will. Strange, if the demons in our world knew about Scott, even when Master Gui was still on Earth, many small demons would take the risk and choose to attack the Earth because Scott's ability is too strange. They can even use Scott as a springboard to counterattack the Earth. Logan, damn, our world will not attract monsters like Dormammu. Strange, this possibility is not great. Dormammu still has a certain size, but I think the red ability is a bit like the energy of Satorak's Crimson Universe. Charles, Crimson Dimension? Satorak? How does he compare to Dormammu? Strange, logically speaking, Satorak is still stronger than Dormammu. Logan, why don't I go to that small town in Nepal to see if there is a Kamataj after I go back? Charles, according to the time, Scott should not be 20 years old, and the story above takes place 20 years later. The current Scott may not be born yet. I will ask Alex about his brother, who should not be born yet. My tree. The video continues. Scott asked tentatively, I didn't cause any major damage? You split a tree in half. Scott breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. Fortunately, no one was hurt. That tree was planted by my grandfather when he was 5 years old. I used to swing on it. Charles' tone was full of heartache that he was hiding. The tree itself was valuable, but it was mainly commemorative and valuable, and it carried a lot of Charles' childhood memories. After the voice fell, the poor old tree finally couldn't bear the weight and completely split in the middle. I think that's my favorite tree. Listening to Charles' words and the sound of the poor tree that he accidentally hurt falling, Scott thought that his admission was probably a sham. You're admitted. Charles sensed Scott's inner uneasiness, patted his shoulder and said, tuition fee, remember to plant a new tree, right there. It seems that you are a good teacher. Logan said to Charles beside him, anyway, it's better than now. Listening to Logan's insults, Charles didn't say much, but just silently remembered and planned to add the prohibition of all experiments by the lake into the school motto. Obviously, the school has an underground test site converted from an air raid shelter, so why did I have to go to the lake at that time? Image continues. Cairo, Egypt. Once the pinnacle of human civilization, the ancient city of Cairo with a history of thousands of years is full of vicissitudes. Under the influence of modern artillery, even the strongest ancient city is inevitably scarred. The once most prosperous city in human civilization has changed a lot. Poverty, oldness, and various social problems have spread throughout the city. A woman in a black robe sneaked into the backyard of a restaurant and easily knocked down an adult man who was guarding it. The woman threw away the black robe, revealing an explorer suit hidden inside. She took out a flashlight and walked into the secret passage in the yard. Sure enough, she found a golden triangle underground. The golden triangle was still intact after thousands of years of dust. The woman took out her camera and took a few photos. She was about to leave. When she turned around, she was hit by someone who came to support her. Chapter 642, Apocalypse Awakens. Everyone senses. looking at the people chanting spells, as if they were holding some cult ritual. She didn't have time to do anything before the sunlight outside shone into the basement through the passage. When the sunlight shone on the golden triangle, the ritual that had been stopped for 1,000 years was started again, and the runes on the golden triangle were activated again. The cult members ignored the woman. Seeing the miracle, they knelt down in front of the golden triangle and began to chant the spell. Almighty God, the Supreme and Almighty Lord Ensabana, can I understand that they have been holding this ceremony for a long time, and they are just to awaken Apocalypse, but due to improper operation, the golden triangle has been buried in the ground without seeing the sun, and they didn't know that this thing needs sunlight to start. As a result, this woman broke in and accidentally stimulated the ritual of Apocalypse's resurrection. I think your reasoning is completely reasonable. What is this? Planting flowers with care, but they don't bloom, but planting willows by accident, and they grow into shade? Almost the same. After 5,000 years, the pyramids and altars are still useful. Apocalypse, who was sleeping under the pyramid, finally waited for this last kick after 5,000 years, and the whole ceremony was finally completed. Apocalypse suddenly opened his eyes, feeling his chest that had been pressed by the boulder for 5,000 years, and he felt a little stuffy in his chest. Generally speaking, the thing called grumpiness when waking up has nothing to do with the length of sleep. Apocalypse, who had slept for 5,000 years, burst into grumpiness when waking up, and a burst of purple-white energy flow surged, and the 5,000-year-old boulder pressing on his chest was directly lifted up, followed by more energy surges, and the entire plate was affected. The nearest Cairo directly ushered in a small-scale earthquake. If someone detected the source of the earthquake, they would be surprised to find that the source of the earthquake was only a few dozen meters underground. Riven, who fled the arena with the Blue Devil, Charles, who was in school, and Eric, who was living a peaceful life in Poland, all felt something. Maybe it was an earthquake, but it was more like a spiritual induction. They felt that something in their blood was about to wake up at this moment. Eric was stunned, but maybe it was a coincidence. When a furnace filled with molten iron, at least in tons, fell in the air, the iron chain hanging on it suddenly broke. Seeing that the molten iron that could melt a person was about to pour on an old worker, Eric subconsciously took action. For Eric, it is not difficult to lift a furnace weighing several tons with pots and water. He can do this operation while sitting there or even dancing. However, people will instinctively react in a hurry. For Eric, this gesture is his most commonly used gesture, which has almost become an instinct. When he rescued the person, he suddenly realized what he had done. Moreover, his previous action seemed to be seen by someone. Looking at his colleague who was obviously a little guilty, after being swept by his eyes, Eric secretly said in his heart that it was not good. Eric secretly said in his heart that it was not good. Something was going to happen. According to the operation of the screening room in terms of fun people and AIing, Eric knew that something was going to happen. That's my home. Everything in the theater began to shake violently, regardless of whether it was made of iron or metal, and everyone felt uneasy. The temperature was rising continuously, from the originally suitable temperature to a high and rapid rise. Calm down, Eric. Hickory and Peter pressed Eric back on the left and right. The theater adjusted the temperature and switched the screen, bringing the screen to the X Academy, which gradually calmed Eric's excitement. In the academy, Charles was comforting the students who had already fallen asleep. Just now, a huge mental wave swept the entire academy. Fortunately, he reacted in time and the other party just released himself instinctively, which allowed Charles to suppress this mental power. This is not the first time he has faced this situation. He has experience. Pushing the wheelchair, Charles came to the door of a room, and Hank had been waiting for him here. It started again. Hank said to Charles, but this time it's unusually strong. Yes. Charles nodded, then motioned Hank to open the door, and he controlled the wheelchair to enter the room. A red-haired girl was tossing and turning on the bed. Her face was in great pain, as if she was suffering from something great. Jane. Charles called Jane's name softly, and then entered Jane's dream through his mental power. The flames were burning, the earth was collapsing, and everything was turned into elementary particles under the burning of the flames. Jane. Even Charles, a Delta level mutant who was already in his 40s and a master of mental power who had fully developed his mental power, showed great pain after entering Jane's nightmare. This was a qualitative crushing. Jane's mental power suppressed Charles from the source. At this moment, Charles could only rely on his strong mental power and rich experience to compete with Jane's mental power. At Charles' call, Jane was finally freed from the nightmare. Both the master and the apprentice breathed a sigh of relief, as did Hank at the door. It was not the first time that he was affected by Jane's nightmare, and this time it was particularly strong. There is a dark force spreading in my consciousness like a ball of fire. I thought I was fine, but as soon as you close your eyes I have to face them. Dark power. Could it be Dormammu again? No, although Dormammu is indeed the lord of the dark dimension, his power will not be manifested in flames. If it was the advent of Dormammu, the girl should have dreamed of a pitch black darkness. Logan, so, has my world been targeted by a group of demons? There is Scott in front and the girl named Jane behind. Chapter 643, Charles Gossip, Target Cairo. Strange, now it seems very likely that the origin of mutants comes from the demons that once descended on Earth. Gandalf, for a god-level being, it is not difficult to modify the genetic factors of a race. I once thought that mutants were the creation of the Celestials, but now it seems that it is not impossible that mutants are the product of dimensional demons. Strange, there may not be Kamatage in that world, but there must be something that blocked the invasion of the dimensional demons, so that they can only invade the Earth through that kind of infiltration. For example, with the appetite of the dimensional demons, they must have descended on Earth one after another. Strange, Scott's energy is very similar to Satorak in the Crimson Dimension. As for Jane, I can't negotiate what the flame that appeared in Jane's nightmare is for a while. Wonder, maybe the flame is just a form of expression. I will now turn the power of chaos into chaos fire. Moreover, the core of chaos fire is also annihilation, which is very close to the scene in Jane's dream, where everything turns into particles. I also have mind control and telekinesis. Could it be that Jane is the Scarlet Witch of that world? Exclamation mark. Strange, this is just a possibility. Maybe Jane's energy is just telepathy, but she was targeted by Sithan. He plans to use Jane's body as a springboard to enter the Earth. Ganata hates Sithan. Strange, yes, the existence that can tear the multiverse apart. Ganata, I don't know if my dad can beat Sithan. The video continues with Charles' comfort. Jane's mood finally calmed down. Charles is also experienced in educating children. After coaxing Jane to sleep, Charles and Hank came to the underground laboratory. Hank said that Jane's nightmare this time was very unusual, and it should be due to some external reasons. For example, a vibration. The detector recorded this energy. This energy appeared instantly in the previous experiment. It was like a vibration, and it seemed to have some effect on our bodies. Hank said to Charles, the formation of this energy was definitely not caused by Jane, but something else. Jane just sensed it in her sleep. I suspect that this nightmare was caused by this energy. The epicenter is on the other side of the Earth. In front of a titanium, alloy steel iron door. Charles was scanned by the instrument. The light from the instrument formed a big X on Charles' face. Charles touched his chin. He actually made such a device in the future. He had cancelled this idea before because he thought it was a bit stupid to be flashed by the light, but it seemed to be quite good in actual operation. Bruce Wayne, did you make such a big device underground? Bruce was a little shocked. That thing was not small. Although he didn't know what it was used for, he could guess from the appearance that the technological level of this thing was definitely not low. Charles, Hank told me about this thing. The full name of this thing is the Brainwave Enhancer. It is used to enhance my mental power so that I can more effectively search for mutants around the world. But the one I used before was much more crude than this one. Now it seems that Hank and I in the future have created a complete Brainwave Enhancer. Can a simple first generation machine scan the world? Bruce's superpowers of Charles are currently limited to eavesdropping and finding people, but even so, Charles's ability is enough to make Bruce wary. Although he thinks he has a strong will, facing such a person, he is not sure whether his heart will be eavesdropped by the other party. If such a villain appears in his world, it is time to add a mental power plan to the plan. In the brainwave enhancement room, Professor X puts on the helmet of the brainwave enhancer. The wills of countless people are heard by Professor X. This is equivalent to at least millions of people talking in your ears and your brain in an instant. Such a terrifying impact is enough to make a person collapse on the spot, but Charles has an extremely relaxed expression. Not to mention collapse, he doesn't even have a painful expression. Instead, he is confident. Thanos, what a terrifying willpower. He can sense the mental power of at least 1 million humans at the same time, and he can do it with ease. Strange, aren't you afraid of going crazy if you play like this? Charles, actually, I've been used to it for a long time. I've awakened this ability since I was very young. I remember that, when I first heard other people's thoughts, I was also very panicked. But before I met Raven for the first time, I was already used to this kind of life, and I was able to hide it very well. After I became an adult, I had already easily mastered this kind of large-scale listening. Hank helped Charles locate the coordinates, which was the place where the epicenter occurred, Cairo. Soon, Charles found the target. Is it her? Charles' expression was a little subtle. What's wrong? Who? Moira Magda Gort. Hank looked confused. Be more specific. Is it her? Charles was stunned. The relationship between Moira and him was not ordinary. The two had developed to the stage of lovers. It's just that the appearance of Moira in this world is quite different from the one he knows. That's why he didn't recognize her at the first time. Maybe it's because 20 years have passed. But did he separate from Moira in the future? She is beautiful, still the same as before. No. Hank said, you said it. Is this what I want to hear? You get to the point. I'm asking where she is, and what she's doing. How did the CIA get involved? I saw she was about to go back to Langley to report the situation. Let's go and see if there's anything we can do to help. Hank looked like he knew everything, so I'll just give you a favor. Then he said bluntly, anyway, you can meet Moira by the way, right? The two people on the screen were talking in an environment where only the two of them were there. They were comrades in arms and friends for many years. Hank was also an insider, so there was no problem with them joking with each other. But the problem outside the screen was bigger. Someone's privacy was completely exposed. Eric suddenly understood why the screening room chose Charles to come in. Sure enough, everything in Fate had already been secretly marked with a price. Since you took the gift, you don't have to expect the screening room to give you some face or something. Chapter 644. Eric's question. Let's go and meet the people in our memories. While Charles was reminiscing about the past, Eric was busy moving. Although he saved people, Eric, who did not trust humans, was instantly paranoid after his identity was exposed. Looking at his wife, Eric said, home is where we are. As long as our family is together, then anywhere is home. Avengers building. Thor heard Eric's words and suddenly said, Father also said something similar to me. He said that Asgard is not a place, but a people. Is he telling me that Asgard is where there are Asgard people? Odin and Loki have returned to Asgard. Anyway, they have all kinds of magic props. It is not a big problem for the father and son who have returned to Asgard to miss the live broadcast. Anyway, they can watch the replay. If there is any special situation, Thor can contact Odin who is far away in Asgard as soon as possible. If it really doesn't work, is it difficult to ask Ancient One to open a cross-border portal, or ask Heimdall to open a Rainbow Bridge teleportation array? You know, the one who was petrified was Heimdall from Loki's world, not Heimdall from the Avengers world. Eric looked at himself on the screen, who was convincing his wife, and knew that the screening room was about to become inhuman. The video continues. After finally convincing his wife, Eric wanted to leave quickly, but at this critical moment, their daughter Nina was nowhere to be found. In a hurry, Eric once again used his ability. Although he played his ability like the King of Iron, his real ability was to control magnetism. Under the induction of magnetism, Eric successfully scanned the iron pendant on Nina. But when he walked over with his wife, Nina had been captured by a group of police as a hostage. In the silent and gloomy woods, a group of policemen held guns in their hands. Next to him was Eric's daughter, and opposite was Eric and his wife. Your daughter is fine, Henrik. The leading police officer said to Eric, who was using the alias Henrik, "We just want to talk to you. There is no metal here, including my police badge and bow and arrow, which are all sharpened wood." Seeing that the other party had no intention of hurting his daughter, Eric, who had been thinking of exchanging his daughter, nodded, raised his hands and slowly walked over. Seeing that the other party was so cooperative, the police also breathed a sigh of relief. This was a ruthless person who dared to bring down the president. If the other party really had something on him, all of them would have to die here. Since the other party was willing to negotiate peacefully, it would naturally be the best. Someone saw something unusual in the factory today. "Henrik, please put down your weapons. You are a law-abiding man, Henrik, a good worker and a good neighbor. I'm willing to believe in you." The policeman changed the subject and said, "But no one in this town really understands you. Is this you?" The police officer finally couldn't help, but took out a newspaper and asked, "Is this you? The legendary Magneto?" After a moment of silence, Eric finally turned his head to look at his wife and said, "Please arrest me and let my daughter go." Eric, who had been hiding for many years, had long been changed by this peaceful and warm secluded life. In order to save his daughter, this former leader of mutants, who said he would kill the president and even moved a stadium to assassinate him, and an educator with extremely hardcore educational methods, chose to compromise instead of using his abilities. "Let my daughter go, I'll go with you." Eric, who had made up his mind, calmly walked to the police and chose to surrender. His daughter Nina returned to her mother's arms. Seeing her father being taken away, Nina finally couldn't help but break down. Her emotions, which were originally as calm as dead water, finally broke out. "Please don't leave me. I won't let them take you away." The mother beside her noticed something was wrong and comforted the crying Nina to calm her down, but something had already happened. The originally quiet woods suddenly heard the chirping of birds. Eric and the surrounding police found clues and knew that his daughter was also a mutant. Looking at the flying flocks of birds and the calls of wild beasts, the police officers who did not have this plan panicked and asked the other party to stop, but Eric, who had experience in this area, knew that Nina couldn't control her abilities when she was calm, let alone now. She was just a child. "You scared her." As Nina cried, the birds attacked, and the scene began to become chaotic. The sharp beaks and claws of the birds scratched the police's body. In the chaotic scene, the police holding the hunting bow looked at the flying birds in the sky and subconsciously loosened their hands. Puff! A low sound sounded, and the sharp arrow shot into Nina's young body in a graceful arc, passing through Nina and hitting Eric's wife. "Nina, no." Eric, who had been barely calmed down, burst into a complete emotional explosion. An unknown terrifying force swept across the entire screening room. All the people in the screening room felt sadness in their hearts, as if everything in the world had lost its meaning of existence. It was as if a voice was echoing in everyone's ears. "All this is meaningless. Destroy in the flames. Perish in the flames. Perish in the flames." A hood trapped Eric inside, but the flames and unknown forces were still affecting the entire screening room. Seeing this, Bruce Wayne directly flipped through the isolation barrier and rushed to Eric, who was out of control. He ignored the flames and knocked Eric unconscious with a punch. When Eric fainted, all the strange phenomena disappeared, as if nothing had happened. What kind of power is this? Charles, when did Eric awaken a new ability? Peter Parker, I gave Eric a purple card that I drew before, but I didn't expect it to have such a big impact. Charles, purple card? So Eric has been hiding in his room since he came back to study this? Logan, you should have listened to me at the time and kicked the door in to pull that guy out instead of knocking on his door like a goddess. Peter, what exactly did you give Eric at that time? Strange asked hurriedly. That world is likely to be related to many demons if you practice blindly. Peter also regretted it at this moment and said quickly, the purple card is a prop card called the Supreme Induction Hard Sutra. It is said that, if you practice according to the above, you can finally practice to the state of unity between man and nature, and comprehend the world. It's not Peter's fault. Hickory said, who would have thought that Eric's world would be related to a large group of demons? So, the power that Eric showed just now is actually emotion, or the power from the heart. As a knowledgeable cosmic god, Janitor quickly confirmed Eric's ability. This power is completely different from the power I know. The sadness can be explained by mental influence, but the flame created out of thin air gives me the feeling that, although it has a little shadow of mental power, it is more of something else. Anger. Constantine suddenly said. The fire of anger. What? I've said before that there was an ancient magic called mind magic, which is said to be able to materialize inner emotions, such as the power of anger can be turned into flames, which is very similar to Eric's previous performance. Besides, Constantine asked, aren't you going to stop it? Everyone knew who Constantine was asking, and the person involved said, you are so old, you should do your own things. Why do you want me to stop you? Would you throw a trump card when playing landlord? Looking at the screening room that called itself the trump card, everyone could only hold it in. Anyway, the flames and sad emotions just now were really nothing to everyone. They even suspected that, if they didn't take action, the screening room would let Eric burn until it closed. The video continues. 2 fallen bodies, a confused policeman. An accident happened in this unknown forest. Eric broke free and ran towards his daughter. Although Eric is a powerful mutant, it is a pity that no matter how strong he is, he cannot save the person in his arms at this moment. The most important person in the world to him, the once glorious Magneto, can only kneel on the ground and shout humbly, no, don't leave me. The arresting police looked at each other. They didn't know why things turned out like this. They could only watch the tragedy happening in front of them. Why is it my daughter? Holding his daughter and wife, Eric felt the bodies of the 2 people who had no breath, and took the pendant from Nina's neck. Holding the pendant in his hand, Eric's expression gradually calmed down, but the hand holding the pendant tightly, the shaking hand suggested that Eric's calmness was just due to the loss of consciousness caused by too much grief. In the vast forest, only the sound of metal scratching the neck was heard. One by one, the police fell down. Before they could react, they were scratched by an iron pendant in the neck, and died in this quiet jungle. After taking revenge, Eric raised his hand holding the pendant, and cried to the sky, is this your purpose? Is this what you want? Am I destined to be like this? Is this my fate? Why? Eric hugged the bodies of his wife and daughter in pain. The surrounding environment changed with Eric's inner sadness and anger. However, no matter what Eric did, his wife and daughter would never come back. Chapter 645. Is it really just a coincidence? No. Strange suddenly realized something, and he quickly asked Jarvis to call up the previous footage and check it over again. Seeing Strange's look, Bruce Wayne and Tony also hurried over. What did you find out? Do you think that the arrow just now was too coincidental? Strange said, they were shooting birds at the time, and then a policeman just slipped, and the arrow just happened to hit the mother and daughter. Jarvis called up the image, and Strange enlarged the image, and pointed at it and said, look, the arrow went straight through the bodies of the mother and daughter. There's definitely something wrong. Looking at how deep the arrow went, and the large section that went straight out, Bruce Wayne immediately said, look at the bows they have. This kind of bow is used for hunting, and it can still be seen in Norway. It's not a problem to shoot through a person with this kind of hunting bow, but it requires aiming. It was blocked by the bones, and the bones of an adult and a child, and it just pierced the hearts of the 2 people. Unless it's really a 1 in a million coincidence, otherwise, someone is definitely playing tricks. And the arrows. Bruce enlarged the arrows on the screenshot and said, in order to prevent Eric's ability, they chose wooden arrows. This thing is made of birch wood, but no matter how good the birch wood is, it is impossible for it to remain intact after piercing 2 people. Besides, they are all bows, not crossbows. A bow needs to be opened to accumulate power. The arrow cannot fly out without the accumulation process. To cause this level of penetration, at least half of the bow needs to be opened. I really haven't found enough information. Welcome to correct me. Did the policeman pull the hardwood bow halfway to drive away the birds? This possibility is not great. Logan, could it be that demon god again? Bruce Wayne, I don't know. Constantine, it is very likely. Since Eric has assassinated the president, he should have killed many people. In hell, this kind of soul is still valuable. Maybe this is a trap set by a demon to obtain Eric's soul. Holy lord. Actually, there is another possibility. Apocalypse. Loki Odinson. It's possible. If Apocalypse wakes up, I think he will definitely choose to recruit subordinates. As a god, he certainly can't do everything himself. He must recruit subordinates. Thanos. No, I think this matter was caused by Apocalypse, but this arrow was not affected by Apocalypse. If Apocalypse wants to recruit Eric as a subordinate, he will not use such a sinister and troublesome method. Thanos. Maybe he can directly show his intentions and use violence if he doesn't listen, instead of using such a meaningless method to recruit Eric. Wonder, could it be that he intends to use the power of resurrection to resurrect Eric's wife and daughter? If so, Eric will definitely not refuse to become Apocalypse's subordinate. Thanos. But all this has a premise, that is, why Apocalypse can find Eric. There are so many mutants in this world, why did Apocalypse choose Eric? Maybe he has the ability to sense mutants, but this is still too far-fetched. The video continues in the CIA base. Alex talked with Charles, who was pushing a wheelchair. So you haven't seen her in all these years? You haven't looked for her? You haven't even used the brainwave enhancement machine? Charles smiled helplessly and said, Alex, do you think I'm a peeping Tom? If you are really bored, you can help me push the wheelchair. I'm very tired. But then Charles changed the subject and said, okay, actually, I peeked once or twice, but it was just a few glances, understand? Looking at himself, who admitted it generously, Charles decided that he must learn to keep his mouth shut in the future. At the same time, he also realized that this gift might not be easy to take. How did you do it? Wouldn't you be reluctant to give it up? Alex asked questions like a curious baby. The two walked into an office while talking. Of course, but people always need to take a breath. At this moment, the busy crowd seemed to be frozen in time, and Charles continued, I erased all her memories of us and the things on the Cuban coast. At that time, people didn't know the existence of mutants, so I think this is best for her. What about you? Alex's words made Charles' mood suddenly depressed, and he responded lightly, it doesn't matter whether I'm good or bad. The beautiful woman with square eyes was busy in a small office. Charles and the others knocked on the door and walked in. Hello, Moira Magdaga. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Charles, greeted with a smile on his face. At the moment Alex walked into the room and closed the door, the stagnant crowd outside resumed their actions, and the old man who poured coffee even spilled coffee on himself. Charles, who wanted to introduce himself, was recognized by Moira directly. I know you, Charles Xavier. This time it was Charles' turn to be stunned. He had made all the preparations before coming here. He thought that his heart was as hard as iron. He thought that, although he had not let go, he could look at everything calmly. Then Moira's words broke Charles' defense on the spot. Even if it was just a simple sentence, I know you. For Charles it was like the land being blown by the spring breeze, and the dry land being sweet after a long time. His heart trembled fiercely. He had imagined countless situations after meeting Moira, including the other party ignoring him and directly calling the guard, but this situation, that was like meeting old friends, was something he had never thought of in countless assumptions. There was confusion on his face, and happiness in the confusion, and a hint of fear in the happiness. He enjoyed the feeling of Moira recognizing him, but he didn't understand why he had already known all of Moira's memories of them. Alex also asked, do you know him? Yes, Charles Xavier, I have read all his papers. Moira stood up and shook hands with Charles, just like a sane ordinary fan who accidentally met her idol. Nice to meet you in person today. Chapter 646, Famine Night, Storm Girl. Looking at his ecstatic expression on the screen, Charles began to carefully recall the Moira he knew. Although she was very beautiful, and many of her ideas were consistent with his, and she was also his fan, but Charles didn't even need to turn his head to see the photo on the seat. It was a photo of Moira and her son. Yes, Moira, married. This was a pain that could not be described in words, but fortunately Charles was not an ordinary person, and he began to check the household registration without any abnormality on his face. You have a son? Yes. Does he have a husband? Hey, do you have a husband? Looking at Charles, who said he didn't care, but actually wanted to use his mental power to scan his mind. Alex turned his head away awkwardly. He couldn't bear to watch it. It was really embarrassing. Shame on him. I had a husband before, but in a line of work, it's impossible to go home on time to cook every day. Sacrifices are inevitable, right? Yes, I understand. The awkward atmosphere made Alex even unbearable. He almost dug out a 2-bedroom and 1 living room on the ground with his feet. Alex couldn't help but cough to remind Charles to pay attention to the purpose of his coming here. We came here today hoping that you can tell us what happened in Egypt yesterday. The topic finally got on track. Hearing Charles' question, Moira asked back, sorry, these are all our secrets. I don't mean anything else, and I'm curious how you got in. Faced with a stranger suddenly coming in and asking such a confidential question, Moira asked curiously, I have the highest authority. It seems that any man would find it difficult to resist this. Since people discovered mutants 73 years ago, many fanatics have appeared. They regard mutants as a sign of God's reappearance. I'm tracking down one of the believers. He calls himself Ashur en Sabana, named after an ancient man. They believe that he is the first man. Moira told them about her investigation in Egypt and took out photos and other materials. What first man? Alex asked curiously. The first mutant in the world. Alex really didn't expect this. He always thought that mutants were a thing of this century. This is our theory, but these people believe that the ancestor of mutants was born tens of thousands of years ago, and they believe that he will appear again. They have searched all the ancient monuments in the world to find his traces. Moira took out photos of ancient monuments one by one, and finally stopped her eyes on a pyramid. These hieroglyphs record in detail a superpower, a mysterious power that no one can control. Moira took out all the clues she found and analyzed them for the two people. Do they believe he can survive until now? Charles felt it was a fantasy and asked in confusion. Not entirely. They believe he has the ability to transfer his consciousness to others. Every time before he dies, he will find a new body. This time, some of the bodies are mutants. In this way, he can absorb their abilities and accumulate different abilities. An almighty mutant. Charles exclaimed in disbelief. That's right. There are always 4 mutants around him, his disciples. He will give them power to protect himself. Just like the 4 horsemen in the Bible. Alex joked. He plagiarized the Bible, or maybe the Bible was written about him, who knows? But under his rule, there will only be disasters. Maybe he is the apocalypse in the Bible. After listening to Moira's reasoning, everyone did not jump to conclusions. Moira's reasoning was actually the same as their speculation here. No one knew what Apocalypse's ability was, but what was certain was that Apocalypse definitely lived to the modern era. I still want to know if it is really as Moira said. Apocalypse has the ability to take away other people's abilities, but he was clearly transferring them to the sacrifice at that time. But if it was a call of the soul, not to mention the changes in the body, how did he take away his own abilities? Who knows? Yes, from the perspective of normal medicine and magic, it makes no sense for Apocalypse to transfer his soul into a brand new body and take away the original abilities, unless the source of the mutant's ability is not the body, but a soul or energy. Image continues. The scene turned in the bustling market in India. A man in a black robe walked in the crowd, aimlessly looking at the strange city and everything around him. He is Apocalypse, an antique who has lived for more than 5,000 years. He was awakened and thought that the transfer ceremony was over, but he found that things were not as he expected. He was buried in the ruins, and his 4 loyal men had disappeared. Everything around him had changed dramatically, from clothing to people. Suddenly he set his sights on an African American woman with a strange hairstyle. Apocalypse set his sights on her, not because of the strange hair, but because Apocalypse sensed the mutant power in her body. Apocalypse watched her quietly as she used her ability to summon a strong wind, or perhaps it could only be called a gust of wind. She stole things from the stall when the wind blew, and then was chased. When she was blocked in an alley, Apocalypse came out and stopped the man from wanting to remove Storm's hand. Faced with the man's knife threat, Apocalypse muttered to himself, "Who rules this world now?" Because Apocalypse spoke ancient Egyptian, the man on the opposite side could not understand it at all. When he saw his companion coming over, He raised his knife and arrogantly slashed in front of Apocalypse. Cheyenne didn't even get angry. In his opinion, getting angry over a bug was not worth it. Cheyenne raised one of his hands, and the 3 people who came to help were instantly beheaded by a stream of muddy yellow sand. The headless bodies fell to the ground instantly. Seeing that the situation was not good, the companions on the other side chose to run away directly. The man with the knife looked at his companion who suddenly died beside him, and instantly realized that this person was definitely not someone he could afford to offend. Looking at Cheyenne, whose pupils turned white, the man with the knife retreated and begged for mercy. But Cheyenne did not let him go, and embedded the bug that offended his dignity into the earth wall. Then Cheyenne looked at the girl who was a little nervous at the side. I knew this old antique couldn't be a good guy. He is the pharaoh of ancient Egypt. No, even the pharaoh can't compare to him. The pharaoh claimed to be a descendant of the sun god, while Apocalypse could call himself the true god in ancient times. If Apocalypse ruled the world, a cleansing of mankind would be inevitable. The rescued girl brought Apocalypse to the shabby house that took in homeless children. The house was so shabby that it was unbearable to look at. The only furniture was a TV with a very poor signal and a broken refrigerator that was not sure if it could still be used. After driving all the homeless children out of the house, the girl said curiously, "There is actually a second mutant in this town. Do you speak Egyptian, Arabic, English?" The mutant girl wanted to communicate with Apocalypse, but unfortunately Apocalypse was an ancient Egyptian and couldn't understand at all. He looked around at the surrounding environment. Looking at Apocalypse looking at the photo of Mystique on the wall, the mutant girl explained, "She is a warrior, my hero. I want to be like her." Seeing that Apocalypse really couldn't understand her, the mutant girl could only turn around and leave to prepare some food. Apocalypse saw the TV in the room, walked over to look at the TV screen, and put his hand on the screen. The girl opened the refrigerator to get some food, looked at Apocalypse's strange behavior and asked, "What are you doing?" She just asked casually, because this weirdo was almost like a mute, but she didn't expect Apocalypse to slowly say the word learning in English. Apocalypse, through his unique ability, successfully used the carrier of television to slowly understand the world, and these humans who betrayed him established a new civilization. Modern civilization, mutants, ancient Egypt, weapons, superpowers. Weak humans rule everything. They are traitors. Those false gods and leaders will no longer exist. Apocalypse slowly uttered words, as if whispering his return. I'm back. Where are you from?" The mutant girl looked at the weirdo in front of her and learned English for no reason, so she couldn't help asking. From the time when humans had not lost their way, Apocalypse spoke word by word, as if he had not yet adapted. Hidden under the black robe was a crazy and trembling heart. "Really? Then welcome to the 1980s. The mutant girl took a sip of the drink and said, "This world needs everything. Purification." "What?" Looking at Apocalypse who was making a second-year speech, the mutant girl said seriously, "Killing innocent people indiscriminately is not okay. We have laws that don't allow us to kill people at will." The mutant girl suddenly wondered if this guy was Magneto who had been missing for many years. It didn't look like it. Magneto was not blue-skinned. "My child, why do you want to restrain your talent?" Apocalypse seemed not to hear him. He walked to the girl. In front of Apocalypse's tall body, she looked so small, and one hand pinched her chin. "What are you going to do?" the girl asked in a panic. "To make you stronger, my child." As Apocalypse's pupils turned white, the girl's black hair gradually turned white, and the sky was filled with wind and clouds, lightning and thunder. The Four Horsemen of Apocalypse, Famine Night Storm, Return. Chapter 647, War Night, Solok. Apocalypse, what did you do? "I know." The river god raised his hand and answered, "Dye Storm's hair." "Stop it, Charles." Storm's abilities were limited before, and the gusts of wind she summoned could only last for a short time. After Apocalypse did something to Storm, the area where Storm was located directly changed from a clear sky to a thunderstorm. "Charles, combining the other party's abilities with the information I got from Wera before, I suspect that Apocalypse is not granting others divine power, but can strengthen the power of mutants." Charles, mutants have different abilities and cannot be graded, but Storm's abilities are definitely greatly enhanced. Constantine, interesting. Famine Knights. You still have war, plague, and death left. Charles, are you talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the Bible? Constantine, yes, at the end of the world, the Lamb will unlock the 7 seals of the scroll and summon the knights riding 4 horses, white, red, black, and grey, to bring plague, war, famine, and death to the human beings who are accepting the final judgment. At that time, all phenomena in the world will be out of balance, the sun and the moon will change color, and then the world will be destroyed. Constantine, now the Famine Knight has appeared, and there are only 3 left. Constantine, Famine, I think Apocalypse may not choose someone randomly. Although this statement is a bit far-fetched, the screening room specifically calls Storm the Famine Knight, and Storm's status is definitely not rich. She relies on stealing for a living. If Apocalypse hadn't happened to see her today, she would have had one hand cut off for stealing. Constantine, in other words, she has experienced famine in her growth. Charles, in other words, Apocalypse will choose people with these 4 characteristics. Constantine, in other words, Eric will definitely be chosen. Even if there is no footage in the screening room, Eric's current experience will definitely not be a problem for him to qualify as one of the 4 knights. He has experienced the death of his family, and it seems that more than once, so he should be the Death Knight. The video continues in an alley that was originally empty. 2 people appeared in the blink of an eye. One looked very ugly like a devil with blue skin and a pointed tail, and the other was a blonde with an angel face and a graceful figure. The strange pair passed through a door and came to a mysterious underground warehouse. Raven asked Nightwalker to wait for him away and walk towards a man with a bald head without eyebrows and beard. It's nice to see you, Raven, even in this situation. Caliban had just finished taking a photo of someone and said while dealing with the things at hand, "Give me a pass." Faced with the enthusiastic Caliban, Raven just said indifferently, "Okay, where is this gentleman going?" "I don't know, I just saved him, and the rest has nothing to do with me." Mercenary Mystique. Caliban turned his back to Raven and said the words she least wanted to hear. "Don't call me that." Caliban ignored the unhappy Raven and took a photo of the grinning blue devil. "No matter what you disguise yourself as, I, Caliban, will recognize you." Caliban knows all the information about mutants. Mystique. Faced with the unhappy Raven, Caliban continued to provoke her. "Want to know what will happen if you keep pushing me like this? What will happen?" Silok is a little jealous, but Caliban still likes you. Hearing this voice, Caliban said to Raven, "Caliban will tell you a free news about your old friend. If you are still friends, do you still remember Eric Landshear?" My people sensed that he is in Poland. There are many corpses around him, including his wife and daughter. The news should be broadcast soon, but Caliban is willing to tell you first. Hearing Caliban's words, Raven panicked and didn't even take back the money on the table and turned around and walked like the blue devil. How fast can you be? How far can you transmit to? As long as I have seen or been to a place. Follow me. Raven turned around and left directly, leaving only this sentence in the air. To be precise, my name is Nightcrawler. My real name is Kurt Warner. Charles, it would be nice if Eric saw this. Raven actually cares about me and him. Even after 20 years, it's still the same. Tony Stark, this is not a big problem. Jarvis recorded everything. I can show it to him later. Bruce, how long will it take for him to wake up? I controlled that punch very well. It will take at most half an hour. It's still the familiar X-Men Academy. Scott is still standing here with an eye mask by the lake. The lenses of the glasses are made of red quartz. They can refract your lasers and then store them all in the vector field. Try them on. Hank held a pair of glasses in his hand and explained its principle to Scott. Hearing Hank say that these glasses can solve the problem that has troubled him for a long time and let him open his eyes again, he excitedly untied the towel covering his eyes. He closed his eyes nervously and put on the glasses. He took a deep breath just as he was about to open his eyes. Hank looked at Scott and hurriedly stopped him from facing the crowd. "Wait, sorry, come on now." Hank hurriedly asked Scott to change the direction. The poor old tree was still alive, so Hank had to be more careful. After making sure that he had only accidentally injured a bush, Scott tried to open his eyes. After many days, Scott finally saw this beautiful world again, although the world had changed, as if it was rendered by a layer of red cloth. But it didn't matter, he could finally see. I can see now. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. You are so amazing. Scott, who saw the light of day again, said excitedly and gratefully. No, I'm not a professor, although I also wish I was. Hearing Scott's words, Hank was a little embarrassed. Who is she? Scott, who finally regained his sight, saw a red-haired girl in the distance at a glance and asked hurriedly. The one you met is Jane Grey, the one you met when you first arrived. Wait, is it her? Yes. Scott looked at Jane and showed an expression that every man could understand and walked up to her with a happy pace to chat with her. Hey, can you see? The girl who was sorting out heard Scott's voice. Yes, this is better than I thought. Just as Scott was talking, several other students from the school passed by and talked loudly. We should warn the newcomer to stay away from that strange man. Hearing their words, Scott thought they were talking about himself. He said loudly, hey, I have glasses now. Jen, who was sitting under the tree, smiled and said helplessly, they are not afraid of you but me. You are not the only one who has not learned to control your abilities. So it was you who caused the house to shake last night. Hearing the girl's words, Scott turned around in surprise, and his words were full of surprise. I'm sorry to disappoint you. You're not the scariest monster here. Well, it's really the first time. The two smiled at each other, revealing a tacit smile. Some feelings took root between the two. In the school corridor, Hank shuttled among the students and suddenly saw a familiar figure. Raven. Hank greeted him excitedly. He wanted to say something after a long time of reunion, but he was so nervous that he didn't know what to say. It was really a bit inhumane to let an older science and engineering man face this situation alone. How did you? It's not blue. It seems that we have something in common now. Looking at the nervous Hank, Raven said jokingly. No, I mean you're back. I didn't expect you to come back. I didn't expect I would come back either. Raven looked around the college environment that was a little nostalgic, familiar yet unfamiliar, just when Hank wanted to say something again. I'm blue, too. Nightwalker popped up with a grin, breaking the awkward atmosphere. I'm Kurt Warner. I can see that the relationship between you two is not ordinary. Why do I feel that the relationship between them is getting more and more confusing? Shh, keep your voice down and don't talk nonsense. The video continues. Caliban, who was happily counting money, heard the footsteps of someone coming in and said without raising his head, we are closed today. Welcome to come again tomorrow. After hearing no response, he looked up and found that it was Storm. Why is it so cold today? How did you get in? Faced with the uninvited guest, Caliban's expression instantly turned cold. No store owner likes a thief, and Caliban is no exception. Just come in like this. We are looking for mutants. You know how to find them, so we come to you. Apocalypse, dressed in a black robe, walked in slowly. When he walked to Storm's side, Storm bowed his head to show respect. Who are you? The Taliban doesn't know you. Caliban didn't expect that there would be mutants in this world that he didn't know. We are looking for the strongest mutant. Apocalypse just replied faintly, and Salok, who was guarding beside him, walked in from behind the door. Are you okay? It's okay, Salok. After comforting Salok, Caliban asked tentatively without knowing the other party's deep dive. Did you bring money? How much money did you bring? We didn't bring any money. Caliban said, we are closed, understand? Caliban knew that the other party was here to cause trouble, and Salok behind him heard this, and directly held the handle of the knife with one hand, and walked over vigilantly, ready to take action at any time. The one who can be invited by Caliban to watch the show is not an ordinary person. Salok can use telekinesis to create an energy sword that can cut through iron like mud. I need your help, Kit. Apocalypse took off the hat on his head, revealing his weird and ugly face. You don't look like Caliban's father, except that you have no hair. Looking at the other side's unwillingness to listen to advice, Caliban skillfully took out a revolver from the table and pointed it at Apocalypse. Apocalypse directly ignored his threat and slightly activated his ability. Caliban's pistol instantly turned into sand and slipped from his fingertips. Caliban looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. After doing this little thing, Apocalypse went on to say, "You are all my children. Now you have lost your way because you followed the wrong guide. Those stupid false gods, hypocritical laws, and fragile ruling systems, I will not allow them to continue to destroy my world." After Apocalypse finished speaking, Psylocke suddenly launched an attack. Her left hand held a real katana on Storm's neck, while her right hand transformed into a sword emitting purple light and hovered in front of Apocalypse. "What do you want to do?" The purple light was very dazzling in this dim basement, but Apocalypse was not panicked at all in the face of Psylocke's sword and threat, and said calmly, "I want you to completely release the power in your heart. You have only exerted a part of the power you have. Unlike them, I will not control you. I want to release you." Apocalypse's eyes turned white. He didn't even need to strengthen the mutants through physical contact. The purple sword transformed by Psylocke became more powerful than before. The purple light illuminated the entire room. The overflowing energy quickly gathered and finally formed a purple sword with full texture. Feeling the surging power in her body, Psylocke slowly said, "I think I know who you are looking for. I can find them for you." The four horsemen of Apocalypse, War Knight Psylocke, returned to their positions. Why is Psylocke the Knight of War? Could it be that Storm just happened to be there by coincidence, and Apocalypse just randomly picked 4 people who looked pleasing to the eye as his subordinates? And they are all women. Is this old antique planning to have a harem? I think Apocalypse may have chosen Psylocke because Psylocke was attacking him. Because of the attack, it is a war. Then wouldn't the Plague Knight have to be seriously ill, and the Death Knight have to die again? I don't know about the Plague Knight, but I'd still like to bet that the Death Knight is Eric. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648, Plague Knight Angel. Nightwalker is visiting X Academy under the guidance of an Asian girl. This is his first time in the United States. Nightwalker, who doesn't know America, tells a joke. "This is my first time in America. I want to learn about your history and culture. There are only things left over from the UK here," Scott said while sitting on a leather sofa. "Besides, what you just said is a joke in itself." After solving the problem of his glowing eyes, Scott's true nature began to gradually reveal himself. "This kid is not a good boy," Scott said to the two. "The jailbreak plan has been arranged. Do you want to go shopping with me, Smurf? There is a mall nearby." Nightwalker nodded and asked, "What is a mall?" Scott laughed at this, and then prepared to take Nightwalker, a poor child from the countryside, to experience the scenery of a big city. Jin couldn't help it, after listening for a long time, but after Scott's persuasion, the jailbreak trio added one more person. On the other side, Hank took Raven to the secret laboratory and let her visit his latest invention. After passing through a series of strict security measures, a slender black technology fighter appeared in front of her. "You actually built a fighter here? Supersonic explosion-proof device and invisible function." Already considered an uncle, Hank proudly showed off his latest technology products to his goddess Raven like a young man. "It's really amazing, but how can you fly it out?" Looking at the closed environment, Raven asked curiously. She didn't think Hank would not consider this problem. As a rigorous engineer, Raven knew that Hank would not even consider such a basic problem. "Don't worry about this. The basketball court has a movable roof." Hank kept pacing and explained to Raven, "After the Washington incident, I think we should restart the X-Men plan. Just like we imagined before. But Charles wants students, not warriors." Raven understood Hank's idea, but she knew Charles would not agree. He believes that humans have hope for them. "What about you?" Hank was a little helpless. He actually had a different opinion on this issue. After experiencing a series of events, Hank's heart had matured a lot. "I think we should have hope, but at the same time, be prepared for the worst. The world needs the X-Men. Now that you are back, maybe you can help me convince him." Looking at her former companion, Raven could only mention a name that Hank didn't want to hear. Hank, I came back here for Eric. Okay, of course, of course. Hearing this, Hank's excited heart cooled down. I think he may be in trouble. Big trouble. Didn't he that time? Hank responded impatiently. It seems that there are many conflicts between them. So much time has passed, and no one knows what happened in the past 20 years, but I don't think anyone would want to have too much contact with a wanted criminal who has a general relationship with them, especially his crime is assassinating the president. In the academy, Charles knew more inside information. It was probably that Hank really liked Raven, but Raven admired the independent and masculine Eric more. Charles knew why. Even if his superpowers were not counted, he had many doctoral degrees, one of which was psychology. You know, psychology is not Charles' superpower that can read minds, but because of this, people who can fully understand psychology are more terrifying than mental controllers in a sense. Charles understood that girls of Raven's age now have a strong mentality, and Eric perfectly meets this standard. What Charles didn't know was that Raven not only rejected Hank because of Eric, but also became a blue-haired savage for a long time because of this incident. Although it can be regarded as a blessing in disguise that has gained a new mentality, this grudge has been more or less formed. The video continues. I think I know who you are looking for. I can find them for you. Feeling the new powerful force in her body, Salok, who has been in a gray area for a long time, knows that the other party will never strengthen her. Everything in this world has a price. The other party has spent a lot of effort, maybe not much, to strengthen herself. Obviously, she needs a thug. It's okay to be a thug, but she just clamped the knife on the other party's neck, and she also knows some unspoken rules. For example, if you want to surrender, you have to bring a gift to the new master, commonly known as a letter of surrender. And considering the other party's previous request, Salok just knows where there is a letter of surrender. Caliban on the side can only choose to remain silent in the face of this scene. In a world where the strong prey on the weak, the strong always have privileges. In an abandoned warehouse, a naked upper body man with wings on his back is lying on a pillar in the air and drinking. A purple portal suddenly appeared in the originally silent warehouse, and Apocalypse came here with his 2 men. Get lost. He is an angel, the Angel Warren who had won 10 consecutive games in the underground arena before, but was defeated by the more powerful and regular Nightwalker, and half of his wings were burned, and he could not fly again. Warren saw that these 3 people did not listen to his advice, threw a bottle at them, and then flew in front of them. I have said it, don't you understand? Get lost. Is it him? Looking at the wounded angel, Storm was a little confused. That's right, it's him, but I don't know what's wrong with his wings. Let's go, he is not as good as before. Salok looked at the angel with injured wings in front of him, and advised Apocalypse to leave here and find the next target. No, you are wrong. Apocalypse rejected Salok. He was still very optimistic about the angel in front of him, and even liked him more, because of the injuries on the angel. What are you doing here? Warren swung down from the air and asked. I have something to give you. You can never give me what I want. Hearing Cheyenne-Key's words, Warren said disdainfully. He drank the wine in his hand, and turned to leave. Cheyenne-Key didn't say much. He stretched out a hand and slowly activated the X gene in the angel's body. The angel who was walking out with his back to the body suddenly stopped, and the bottle of wine in his hand fell on the spot. A sharp pain surged from his body. Reborn. This is what Cheyenne-Key is doing. This is an adjective, but in the angel, it has become a verb. The wings that were originally made of flesh and blood broke one after another, and the veins on the angel's body bulged. Everything indicated that he was experiencing extremely terrible pain. One by one, the charred feathers fell, and then grew steel feathers that flashed with cold light. Very good, my child. Cheyenne-Key saw that the other party could actually endure this kind of pain, and he was even more convinced that his tricks were not in vain, and the power in his hand increased again. Not just the feathers, the entire wing, no, the bones in the angel's body have all turned into metal at this moment. This is painful, but for the angel, this is rebirth. Fly. After experiencing a brief period of inhuman pain, the angel stood up from the ground, feeling the powerful force filling his body, flapped his wings, and several feathers turned into flying knives and easily pierced the steel plate beside him. Salok, who is more familiar with angels, was stunned. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, Plague Knight Angel, return to their positions. Chapter 649, Death Knight, Magneto. Plague Knight is actually a patient. I didn't expect Apocalypse to really choose people according to this rule. If the angel was not injured at this time, would Apocalypse still choose him? Probably. At most, the Plague would be replaced by Death. No, Death should be the strongest in the finale. In addition, after Apocalypse saw Magneto on TV before, I think Magneto has been decided as a Death Knight in his mind. He has killed so many people and experienced the death of his family and relatives twice. The most important thing is that Eric is very capable, but Eric has not developed it. Tony said, I said a long time ago that Eric's own abilities and potential are terrifying. Maybe because he has never been to school, he can only use his abilities to throw iron blocks, but magnetism itself is one of the four great forces in the universe. If it is well developed, it can subvert the Earth's magnetic field and even detonate stars. I don't think Apocalypse, an ancient man, has studied modern physics, but he should be able to see Eric's terrifying power, and Eric has been in the limelight on TV. Apocalypse should not let go of such a hero-level figure. Image continues. Poland. In the factory, workers are working, but anyone can see that they are absent-minded. Suddenly, the factory gate was opened, and a man with a frozen face stood at the gate. The man walked into the factory. The gates of the passages in the factory were all sealed. The door locks were twisted under the influence of magnetism. Now even if he had the key, he couldn't get out. What's more, the man who only wanted revenge in his heart would never let anyone in this factory walk out of the gate. The magnetic storm swept the entire factory, and all the machines were collectively paralyzed. A voice sounded in the silent factory. Some of you told the police what happened yesterday, what you thought you saw. You want to know my ability, who am I? What I will do, I will let you know. Eric's eyes revealed sadness, but his voice was very calm. There is a saying that the greatest sorrow is the death of the heart, but these words made the workers more afraid. They looked at him in horror, not knowing what he would do next. Now imagine the people you love most in your life, your wife, your mother and your daughter. Tears flowed from Eric's eyes, dragging a long mark on his face. He was not sad for himself, but lamenting the upcoming fate. They will soon taste the taste of losing you, and spend their lives in grief. The lifeless words were like an invitation from the King of Hell, sentencing everyone to death. Henrico, please don't do this. Finally, someone couldn't stand it, and wanted to dissuade Eric from his actions. My name is not Henrik, my name is Magneto. Everything in the factory began to shake. Eric made up his mind to kill them, kill the current Henrik, and let the former Magneto return again. When there was a strange sound behind him, a purple portal opened behind him, and Apocalypse came here with his 3 knights. Where are you from? Eric looked back at the 4 strange people and asked. Apocalypse walked over without saying a word. Don't come over here. No matter who you are, don't try to stop me from killing them. Eric thought that Apocalypse and his men were here to save the workers, and he warned them harshly. Unexpectedly, Apocalypse just tilted his head slightly without any other movements. All the workers in the workshop were buried in the mud on the ground in an instant. Eric looked back at this scene in surprise, and the whole person became very confused. I came here for revenge, and now my enemy was killed by a weirdo. This short mutation made Eric fall into confusion. I didn't come for them, but for you. After Apocalypse finished speaking, he returned to the night and opened the portal to signal Eric to follow them and leave here. Come on. Eric was taken to a place he never wanted to set foot in his life. Auschwitz, concentration camp. This is where Eric awakened his abilities, but this is also where he lost his parents. His family, father, mother, and brother all died here, and his mother was shot dead in front of him by D-San. This is the beginning of everything. From that day on, a man named Magneto was born. Your gift was born here, and this is also where your people were slaughtered. The voice of Apocalypse echoed in Eric's ears. His memory returned to that rainy night with Apocalypse's business. It rained heavily. His family parted with him here, and then he never saw them again. But Eric would never forget the roar that night. You shouldn't have brought me here. Why? Are you afraid to come here? You can't get rid of Eric. Who are you? Jehovah, God, Sun God. In my countless reincarnations, I have too many names. I was born in death, and I will ignite the fire of destruction that will destroy mankind. Let this world get back on track, uproot the so-called civilization, and sow new seeds. I will fulfill my mission to ignite this fire. The voice of Apocalypse seemed to be the whispers of countless people, telling his fate at this moment. Where were you when my parents were slaughtered here? Sleeping, trapped in the darkness. I was not with you at the time, my child, but now I am. I know better than you how powerful your ability is. Feel the metal hidden underground with your heart, and feel the darkness deep in the earth's core. You will find that your power is enough to change the world. Apocalypse came to Eric's side, grabbed his hand, let him stick to the ground, and guided him to feel the power in his body. Feel the metal hidden underground. Feel the darkness deep in the earth's core. Under the guidance of Apocalypse, past memories came to his mind. The separation from his parents in childhood, the wife and daughter who died tragically in his arms yesterday. The sad memories turned into the source of power to stimulate his body's power at this moment. The surrounding iron particles gathered towards Eric, and all the surrounding metals turned into iron powder and gathered towards Eric. Eric felt it. He felt the power hidden in his body, the power hidden deep in his body. Just like when he first mastered his ability, the metal and magnetic field flowed between his fingers. The metal element buried in the ground turned into torrents, covering the sky and the sun and covering Auschwitz. The world of mankind will be destroyed, and we will create a better world on this ruins. Looking at Eric's ability, Apocalypse also became excited and shouted in the wind. With Eric's shout, the huge Auschwitz disappeared forever from this world like a dead tree or rotten wood under his power. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Death Knight Magneto, return. Chapter 650, The Four Horsemen return and old friends reunite. Looking at the metal torrent covering the sky and the sun on the screen, everyone realized for the first time how huge and terrifying the potential of the man who had just been knocked unconscious by Bruce. Now this power has been almost eliminated by the screening room, but his potential cannot be suppressed. Even without the ability of mutants, Eric still showed terrifying power in extreme anger with the Supreme Heart Sutra given by Peter. The unknown spiritual flame affected the environment of the entire screening room with its own willpower. Either the purple card Supreme Heart Sutra is ridiculously strong, or Eric himself has this extraordinary potential. Considering the previous purple card, Water Drop Full Set, and the more advanced gold card, Eternal Spear, it is probably the result of combining both. Taishang. In Eastern Taoism, Taishang is one of the three pure ones, but the East has a long history and there are many myths. I'm not sure which version of Taishang this is, but the most widely spread one is that the three pure ones represent the evolution of the world. Yuan Shi Xianzhen created the world, Taishang Daozu taught all living beings, and Ling Bao Xianzhen destroyed all worlds. This is the reincarnation of the world. After Ling Bao Xianzhen returns everything to chaos, Yuan Shi Xianzhen will create the world again, and continue the next reincarnation. And the word induction has a wider range, but combined with the previous Taishang and the following Heart Sutra, as well as the highest level of cultivation can achieve the unity of heaven and man, I think it should be induction of everything around. Everything? Yes, Taishang Induction Heart Sutra has the ability to let people affect matter through consciousness. Anger emerged from the depths of Eric's heart, so the spiritual flame appeared, and the screening room and we at the time felt a strange power, which should be the impact of Eric on the surrounding environment. Charles, this scripture is still in Eric's room. At that time, he asked me to help him translate the content. Bruce Wayne, is this a book? Charles, yes. Bruce Wayne, then this value is higher than a single skill. It is different from my water drop suit and Wanda's chaos grimoire. I think you can also learn this book. Charles, Bruce Wayne, yes, the technology level of the water drop is extremely high. Even if Hank can build a fighter jet in the underground base, he may not be able to understand the blueprints of the water drop. There is too much knowledge contained in it. And Wanda's chaos grimoire requires the power of chaos to practice. Without the power of chaos, the chaos grimoire can only be used as an encyclopedia to understand the abyss. Bruce Wayne, but the Supreme Heart Sutra is different. This book is more about enlightenment. To comprehend. I think for those who have rich enough life experience, or have a clearer understanding of their inner self, the Supreme Heart Sutra will be more useful. Bruce Wayne, if Mr. Wang Shoren, who attained enlightenment in Longchang, came to read this Taishangani Xinjing, he would probably ascend to heaven on the spot. The video continues. Charles and Alex drove Moira to Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. I've read about this place in an article. Moira was excited, as if she had succeeded in chasing a star. Charles couldn't help but show a trace of pride on his face, but the next second Moira's words instantly made Charles pull his face back. But why do I feel familiar? Moira looked at the strange yet familiar environment in front of her and asked in confusion. Charles and Alex looked at each other in the car. It's really strange. Yeah, get out of the car. Charles pinched his nose uncomfortably and quickly changed the subject. Soon, several people entered the depths of the castle. Charles shouted, "Hank, come and see who is here." The three walked into the room. At this time, Hank and Raven were sitting face to face and chatting. Moira, Raven? Charles looked at Raven in surprise, while Raven was surprised by Moira's arrival. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Moira looked at Raven, as if she knew her. Her doubts made the room fall into silence, and those who knew, and those who didn't answered. Hank, Alex, Agent Magdaga, can we talk alone for a few words? Charles hurriedly drove the other three out, leaving only Raven in the room. The others also knew that the two were going to talk about some confidential matters, and left very tactfully. Why didn't Charles recognize me? She has seen me like this. After the other three left, Raven asked her confusion. That year on the Cuban beach, after you left, I erased her memory. Please sit down. Charles pushed the wheelchair back to his usual workplace. That's pretty good. Raven was happy for Moira to be able to get out of this circle. After all, he is just an ordinary person, and the mutant world is too dangerous for her. Nice to see you, Raven. Welcome home. Charles is very happy that Raven can come back here again, after being away for so long. This is not my home. I just lived here before, and now I don't recognize this place anymore. Raven's words were a bit hurtful, and they directly broke Charles' fantasy. You know my vision for this place. I want to turn this place into a real campus, a university. Not only mutants, but ordinary people can also join us. Live together, work together, and grow together. Raven, who has been away for so many years, has a vicissitude on her body and said calmly, you know, I used to believe in these Washington events. I thought we could change them. Isn't it? No, Charles, they are still afraid of us and hate us. They are just better at hiding themselves than before. I'm tired of this lie. That's why you don't want others to see your original appearance. The hero they want doesn't exist at all. Raven feels that she is not as good as those people outside say. In fact, she is just a coward, not a hero at all. Everything is getting better, and the world is the same. Charles persuaded Raven patiently. Maybe it's true here, but outside, mutants are still fleeing and hiding, living in fear. Even if there is no gun smoke, it doesn't mean that the world is peaceful. If you really want to teach children something, you should teach them to fight. Otherwise they can only hide here for the rest of their lives. Raven was really angry that Charles still had the fantasy of the past. She told him about the real reality she saw and encountered outside, and wanted Charles to get out of his fantasy country. You still talk like Eric did back then. Hearing Raven's words, Charles remembered the conflict between Eric and him back then. The conversation between the two old friends, or the brother and sister, was not beautiful. The conflict between the two sides originated from their ideas. Charles, as a representative of the Dove faction, insisted that humans and mutants could live under the same blue sky, and after seeing a lot of darkness in the world, Raven was more inclined to Eric. In the X-Men universe, looking at the vicissitudes of Raven on the screen, it was difficult for Charles to connect her with his little sister. Charles didn't know what Raven had experienced over the years, but Charles felt that he was responsible for Raven becoming what she is now. I came back this time because of him. His wife and children are dead. He killed those policemen for revenge. Raven revealed her purpose of coming to Charles. She told him about Eric's recent experience. Police all over the world will be looking for him. Hearing that such a serious thing happened to her good friend Eric, she couldn't help but frown. so we have to find him before they do. Raven said what both of them were worried about, fearing that this incident would become the fuse of the war. After listening to the news brought back by Raven, Charles took a few people directly to the brainwave amplifier that Eric made that year. This instrument can greatly enhance his own mutant ability. Crossing a long straight road, they came to the instrument. At the end was a circle that looked like a long spoon from a high altitude. Moira, I hope you can keep this secret for me. I don't even know what this is. Moira looked at the surrounding buildings full of technology and asked puzzledly. This is an upgraded version of the main brain. Yes, the color is okay. It's okay. It's not important. Looking at the look in Raven's eyes, Hank didn't say what to say next. What he wanted to say was indeed to use the same blue as Raven and himself. Charles put on a helmet in front of him, and the surrounding scenery changed instantly, as if he had traveled through the galaxy. The dim sky was dotted with white stars. At this moment, it seemed that countless people were whispering around Moira. Looking at everything that happened suddenly, Moira asked in a panic, "What are those?" "Those are humans on Earth. And these are all mutants. I can sense every one of them." The surrounding scenery changed instantly, and the white figures just now instantly turned red. Each red light represented a mutant, and Charles could easily sense them. The CIA would dream of wanting this machine. Looking at this machine with a powerful ability to find mutants, Moira couldn't help but sigh. I know that. Where are you, Eric? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.